call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Thank you everyone for joining us. I will read our land acknowledgement. As visitors on this land, the town of Bradford, Gwillimbury acknowledges that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, collectively known as Three Fires Confederacy. We recognize the Huron-Wendat, Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee nations have walked on this territory over time. In times of great change, we recognize more than ever the importance of honoring Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect and good health with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Thank you. So Council had a closed meeting before, and we have no motions arising from that. So we're on to item 5, adoption of the agenda. Recommendation that the regular Council and Committee whole agenda dated June 3rd, 2025 be adopted as printed. Moved by Councilor Giordano, seconded by Councilor Perugini. Questions, concerns with the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. A declaration of pecuniary interest in general nature, you can declare now or when the item comes up. Seeing none at this time. We're into point 7 and its presentations. So first I'd like to start off with an acknowledgement of the 1-year anniversary of our Growth Services Director, Jennifer Best. It's her first year. Her first year was officially today. So thank you for joining us a year ago, and it's been a pleasure working with you for the first year, and we look forward to many years after. So thank you very much. Now I've got another special presentation. The Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators Long-Term Service Recognition Award Program. The Long-Term Service Recognition Awards Program is dedicated to honoring and celebrating the dedication of Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators members within public service and municipal management. These awards are based on the duration of full-time paid employment in municipal government, specifically in management roles such as a chief administrative officer, to those reporting directly to them. Recognition is granted at the 10-year mark and subsequently in 5-year intervals. It is with great pleasure to acknowledge the commitment of our Chief Administrative Officer, Jeff McKnight. Jeff has been with our town since 2004. This award celebrates his remarkable 10 years of service in this municipal government and management role as our CAO. Jeff's dedication to his role has been key to advancing our municipality, and we are pleased to recognize his achievements. So thank you, Jeff, very much. And Council, we have a plaque, so could we gather up front, if you don't mind, and we'll present Jeff with a plaque. Oh yes, and the pin. Thank you. And with this award, he gets also. I just want to further say that Jeff is well recognized in his field with all other CAOs. He's very well known and does a great job for our town and for even others. He helps others in other areas in our Simcoe County and others. So thank you so much. Okay, we're on to 8. There's no deputations. We're on to number 9, open forum. So I have 3 people here for open forum. So if I can call up Chris Stewart, and you're here to talk about Foster's Forest entrance. Come on up. Yeah. Perfect.
Hi, I'm a resident of Foster's Forest, and I just wanted to talk about the front entrance. I believe you're going to make some decisions regarding it. So as the residents there would like for you to leave the medium there, leave the lights as they are, leave the pillars, but I understand the bricks are a bit of an issue for everyone. So stamped concrete with the cutouts for gardens in the middle would be our preference to have there. We've all been there many years, and people bought it, and it's one of the things that attracted me myself when I pulled up, thinking what a beautiful entranceway it was, and it really makes the residence area beautiful and a little different than anyone else. And so we would really like for you guys to maintain it as it is, and that's kind of all I have to say. But that's how we would like the lights, the pillars, and leave the medium and stamp concrete if that would be better for you guys than the stones currently. That works for us, and we really would like to have the gardens left in there. and there's just natural grass growing there, so it's not a big issue there. And that's all I have to say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before you could ask one question, I know
Sure.
it's not back and forth, but would the residents in the area be open to maintaining that green space, the garden area?
Yes, we would.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next up, I got Lorna Olreeve, talking about Foster's Forest also.
Basically, just confirming what Chris has said. And specifically, they talked about tearing out the ornamental grasses that go down the center of the median, but to be able to build forms around that and maintain it would be fabulous. I know all the residents of Foster Forest would really appreciate it. And we've already been maintaining the hanging baskets that we personally put out and planted some more ornamental grasses around our postal box areas to enhance it. So whatever the town can do to correct the issue down the center of the median would be terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. And then next up, I have Helen Crocker, talking about ADUs.
Sorry, the sun's in my eyes. Good evening, Mayor Leduc, Deputy Mayor Sandu, and councillors as well as town staff. In 1989, we moved our family to Bradford. It was serviced by one hospital, South Lake, and we had 2 high schools for our children. Zoom ahead 36 years. We are still serviced by one hospital, South Lake, and we still only have 2 high schools for our children. According to Statistics Canada, East Gwillimbury is the fastest growing community in Canada, and Bradford's not far behind. While this may sound like positive news, it's very concerning. The Ontario Medical Association is ringing alarm bells about overcrowding in emergency rooms and hospitals. The South Simcoe School Board is also sounding the alarm. I can personally attest to the fact that our healthcare system is in crisis. If I may share what happened to us within the last 3 months, you will see why I feel the system is in crisis. On March 1st of this year, my husband fell and fractured his hip. It took South Simcoe Ambulance 4.5 hours to come to our residence. Yes, 4.5 hours. This is not acceptable. The recommended wait time for surgery for a broken hip is 36 to 48 hours. However, my husband had to wait 56 hours due to the high number of patients awaiting surgery and the limited number of operating rooms available at South Lake. Again, this is not acceptable. On April 15th, David was rushed to South Lake Hospital again. Our experience in the emergency room, was the most distressing we have ever endured. Unfortunately, this is a common complaint about South Lake's emergency department. Since South Lake cannot meet the demands of the growing municipalities that they currently service, how can it manage to handle an increased population? Just as important, our schools and infrastructure are also stretched beyond their capacity. At the May 20th council meeting, John, please forgive me if I spell or say your name incorrectly, Mabira, the senior project manager, stated that at the end of 2024, the town had 14%, or the equivalent of 892 units remaining in the remaining reserve capacity of the town's water and wastewater systems. Clearly, this is not the appropriate time to add more than the government's mandate of 3 ADUs, or 3 units per lot. It appears that we are facing significant challenges in terms of water supply. Thank you, Councillor Ferragini, for your comments at that council meeting. As stated, the reserves that we have waiting, there are not many of them, yet we're constantly getting hounded to increase intensification. Again, the alarm bell is ringing. I'm asking council to consider the residents as you make your decision about the number of ADUs you will allow. Just say no to 4 units per lot, no matter how it's presented. Finally, for transparency, Mayor Fatouk, when you sent a letter to the province requesting super mayor powers, did you agree to meet housing targets above what the province has mandated? Is that the reason for the push for 4 units per lot? I realize a lot of decisions are made to qualify for funding. However, have you considered the impact that these decisions will have on the services and infrastructure of our community on every day? In the provincial planning statement, it claims its purpose is to, and I quote, support the development of healthy, livable, and complete communities, protect the environment, and public health and safety. I'm asking you, our council, to ensure we meet these goals and not just housing targets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. We'll be dealing with that later in our meeting. Thank you. Okay, so there's no more requests for open forum. We're moving on to section 10, adoption of the minutes, committee whole recommendations. A recommendation of the committee whole recommendations COW 2025 to 29 to COW 2025-38 be approved, and that the minutes of the regular council and committee whole meeting dated May 2025 be adopted as printed. Mover seconder to get these. Point of order for what?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull out COW 2025-32, Committee of the Whole Recommendation Report, application for the zoning bylaw amendment for PLN 2025-29. So that's the Committee of the Whole Report 2025-32 from the minutes.
Okay, I just going to put it on the floor, and then, so you just, when I put it on the floor, then you can just say, I'd like to pull this out. So you want to move then to put it on the floor? And seconder? By Councillor Scott. Okay, and then you want to pull out 2025-32. Okay. So we will then, actually we'll wait to see, I'm going to ask you for your comments, and then I'll wait to see if we're going to do a different amendment or whatever for your motion. Otherwise, we'll go with this. Okay, go ahead. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one is regarding a recommendation report application for zoning bylaw amendment on referencing PLN 2025-29 for the owner of the 1800283 Ontario Ltd, basically for 54 to 64 Holland Street West that was brought up last council meeting. I'd like to add an amendment in there, and if it's brought up there, basically the amendment is that the zoning amendment be further modified to limit permitted uses in the institutional zone to only long-term care facility, nursing home, retirement home, and day nursery. Because we get to control what's down there.
We've got that. Okay, that, and you've got the full amendment there?
We want actual stuff that's going to help.
So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to actually do these minutes recommendations, save and accept this one, and then we'll come back to this one separate. Okay, so the committee recommendation is that the Committee of Whole recommendations COW 2025 to 29 to COW 2025-38, save and accept 2025-32 be approved, and that the minutes of the regular council committee of whole meeting dated May 20, 2025 be adopted as printed. I have my mover and seconder. It's save and accept 32. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to yours, and you have. Can you put that amendment on the table again? So I have an amendment. Do I have a seconder with his amendment? Seconded by Councilor Giordano. Comments or questions based on the amendment to this committee of whole recommendation? Can we all see it? So it's the last line there, that the zoning amendment be further modified to limit permitted uses in the institutional zone to long-term care facility, nursing home, retirement home, and day nursery. Okay. Councillor Ferragini.
Thank you. I can support this because this is basically what we were presented. I wouldn't want, if it doesn't actually happen, I wouldn't want, that's what I mentioned at the last meeting, I wouldn't want some sort of other institutional use take advantage of that zoning piece when we are approving this solely based on the fact that it was meant for seniors housing. So I'm okay with approving this.
Councillor Giordano.
Yeah, I think we had a pretty healthy discussion last time around, and that was the intentions of this application. So council's not putting any further direction other than what the applicant gave us. So I can support that as well. It's not like we're trying to dictate what to put there. We're just trying to ensure that what they said they were going to put there is going to be put there. So good job on catching that.
Can I just ask a further clarification? Did you have a chance to talk to the applicant about your amendment? Did you talk to them about it, or?
Mayor, that to the answer quickly, no, but I'm taking it based on the reports that came back to us and what was said in full value to us. They want institutional to talk about their intent maybe to put the seniors home. I just want to make sure that happens. It's about smart planning for downtown.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dykey.
I too will support it because the way I look at it, by adding that, you're tying them down to a nursing home or what's spelled out. So I will support it. I still want to repeat what I said. I still want to see the town, and when this application moves forward with site plan, that we work a way to open up that gap lane from Holland Street all the way to Drury Street. I'd like to see staff in the future trying to negotiate that however we can to keep that east-west corridor movement to happen in the future. My comments.
Okay, thank you. I just, can I ask our planner to come up and just to clarify, I'd like to just understand, when we say retirement home, would that also include assisted living 55 and above? Does that fit into that description? I just want to make sure that.
Certainly, Your Worship. The short answer is yes. The combination of uses presented there, long-term care facility, nursing home, retirement home, do capture a broad range of accommodations for mature and retired individuals. One example being even the retirement home definition doesn't necessitate individual cooking facilities per unit, but can be provided. So that's an example of how that single use can come in a variety of different forms.
Perfect, thank you. I just needed that. Okay, further comments or questions on this amendment? So Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. Just also to refresh, was this the intended uses by the applicant? I know we're all saying it around this table. If you can just refresh my memory, please.
I believe through Your Worship, I believe the short answer is yes. I believe it was originally labeled as a seniors residence. And again, given that it can take a variety of different forms, there were some on-site communal amenities that were proposed as part of that southerly building, which would enable it to constitute one of these uses, possibly multiple of these uses.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, so the recommendation will read that the Committee of Whole recommendation COW 2025-32 be approved as amended. You want me to read that? Oh, to vote on the amendment, yeah. Just vote on the amendment. Okay. So we're going to vote on the amendment then. So I'll call for all in favor. Okay, carried. So now I have to read it. Okay, so the committee of whole recommendation, COW 2025-32, as amended, be approved. All right, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. No, okay, we're past 11. There's no correspondence, so we're into 12, staff reports. We have growth management report, part 1, PLN 2025-26. Recommendation that report PLN 2025-26 titled Growth Management Project Part 1 be received for information. Move for a second to put this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Ferragini, seconded by Councillor Harper. Question concerns with this? We have our planner here on us here. We had a great meeting. She gave us an update on everything. She did a great job of bringing us up to date on this. It's a very lengthy report. It's well written, well done. It's designed, I think, in my mind, to help us save farmland. It's got the right applications in there when it comes to intensification and density in our down in our transit nodes. So I think this fits right into hopefully Council's plan overall. Councillor Harper. And this is part 1, so there's a lot more to do before we approve the whole thing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. When we're talking about the downtown core in regards to the MTSA in this report, it's great that we're honing in on Bridge Street, but with the intended space that circumference or the circle allows for, doesn't really allow for much development there. A lot of that land is lost due to the high water table. So in future reports, can we not figure out a way to shorten or make a delve inside the circle and push it out to where it would make sense somewhere around there to help support even more intensification around the MTSA? This is the major transit area that we're talking about only. My point being is that if we want to take advantage of the intensification near this, that's where it does make sense, because walking distance towards our transit is key. There is benefit to that. There's a lot of statistics towards that. It's seen in a lot of urban cities as well. It makes sense for those that want to pursue ambitious careers or have other meetings to further the business towards downtown cores. Just that circumference, though, by the MTSA is lost on us. So if we are only limited to a limited amount of like building because of that water table, that could hinder us, and maybe we would have to consider other options or ideas towards that.
Ask our manager of planning to respond to that. Or, no, or Alan?
Certainly, through your worship, to Councillor Harper. Yes, that's certainly a large part of what was considered in the policy directions report that was attached to the report. The floodplain does impose constraints on a large portion of lands in the MTSA. Notwithstanding that, the MTSA boundary was proposed to be as relatively limited as it is, based on perhaps a counterbalancing challenge, being that under the Planning Act, municipalities can no longer require a minimum number of parking spaces for residential uses within the MTSA. So the bigger the boundary, the larger the area of land in which no minimum parking spaces could be applied. That said, certainly the proposed official plan amendment for the MTSA identifies what I'll refer to as a potential path that the town can explore to try to advance permissions for residential intensification along Bridge Street. Even though it's currently mapped as being a part of a floodplain, there is a window of opportunity under provincial technical guidance issued by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry.
Yep, please. Okay. I got Councillor Scott and I got Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, Mayor, for follow-up. And thank you very much for that presentation you guys gave us to the other day, last week, and the insight towards this. It was quite a lengthy read, a number of 6 chapters there to delve into. The one part that I'd like to talk about, though, would on-ramps to new existing highways that are created in this town be considered MTSA transit spots as well? And it hasn't been looked at here potentially, but would that consist of an MTSA kind of zone because of the highway?
Through your worship, the answer would be no. Um, the major transit station area is defined as an area near a stop for a type of higher order transit, such as the GO rail line. So adjacency to a provincial highway corridor would not otherwise qualify as an MTSA unless it is also coupled with higher order transit.
Okay, no, that was a good question, because I would have thought the same thing with the GO buses stopping in the car parks. If that would be at a higher order, but okay, I've got Councillor Scott next.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you to you both and the whole planning team for this, as was mentioned, very detailed report, but I think also a very exciting report. We've talked for as long as I can remember about revitalizing not only downtown Bradford, but also that eastern entrance to town. And if people read the section 6.20 Special Policy Area 20 around the Bradford GO Major Transit Station area, we're proposing some really exciting things about not only housing where it makes sense near that train station so you could get to and from work perhaps on the GO train rather than driving, but also mixed use, so there's more commercial options. And I'm picturing more patios, more dining in the ground floor of a condo. We've seen a little bit of that happening already, and it creates a more walkable and a more livable community. The plan also talks about our riverfront and bringing people back to nature with riverfront trails and amenities so we can enjoy water. I've said before that I think we're really one of the few towns in the Western world that grew up near a river but far away from it. You think of other major cities and you're right on the waterfront, whether it's a small town or a big city, their river or their lake is part of their identity. And this charts a path forward to reclaim that with recreation amenities, and I think a really nice fit of protecting farmland by putting housing near the train station, but also bringing people into the natural area north of the Holland Marsh. We want to divert anglers, fishermen away from the farming areas and into more of a recreational area up towards Scanlon Creek. Councillor Harper alluded to this, but we are constrained by the floodplain. So right now we're looking at essentially commercial uses along Bridge Street only, but I believe we have an opportunity to go to the next phase of this planning, and I want to propose an amendment tonight that'll do that I'll get to in a moment. But there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle along Bridge Street. We have Metrolinx expanding regional express rail, so building 2 tracks where there is currently just 1 railway track into Bradford and down to Toronto. We have the possibility of realigning or changing in some way Bridge Street so it's a safer route. People can turn on to Bridge Street, maybe even looking at something like a service road south of Bridge Street so that marsh farmers can come up underneath Bridge Street, so to speak, and avoid those awkward turns. And then, of course, the public realm upgrade, so it really looks like an eastern gateway, but as well as our phosphorus reduction facility. You put all those infrastructure pieces together, what you're potentially doing is creating the berms that could reduce the floodplain risk. So I think we can go a step further and build off of this really strong start and look at those items in detail and see how that eastern part of Bradford can be the really exciting future of where you might go to shop or sit on a patio and enjoy, or where your son or daughter might have their first condo upstairs because they get on the GO train to go south, or a senior downsizes into a condo knowing that they can go visit their doctor in Newmarket or what have you. So I'm thrilled by this report. Thank you again. And if I could show the amendment, if the clerk could raise it, I hope that will point us in the next direction in terms of the questions Councillor Harper was asking around Bridge Street.
Okay, we've got that amendment, so you're moving that? It's second. Okay, second by Councillor Kike. Yeah, we're going to read it out loud, so just so everybody gets it.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I wish it was just slightly larger, though, Tara. So that staff be directed to proceed with reporting on a scope of work and funding sources to inform solutions to the floodplain issues on the Bridge Street corridor. This work would be done with regard to planned and proposed infrastructure upgrades, such as the doubling of the GO train tracks by Metrolinx, the phosphorus reduction facility, a potential service road, and traffic safety upgrades and public realm improvements to Bridge Street. So just to unpack that a bit, the report in front of us tonight points to future scope of work that would look into the floodplain issues, and Mr. Weep referred to it as a special policy area, and how we could resolve the floodplain issues. This would do that, but it also points out some of the infrastructure investments that are already happening that could serve to help with floodplain mitigation. For example, I'll just be brief here, but for example, if we double the GO train tracks and they're elevated, that's a berm that could be very useful to controlling potential flooding.
Okay, excellent, good points. Okay, so I've got Councillor Kike, and I've got Councillor Dykey.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the same thing. Bridge Street as is now it's functional, sort of, but it's not a very great way, and it's also, if you take away the floodplain issue, it's a great place to put development because it's not going to impact any low-density residential around it, and you could still do the commercial on the bottom first floor, and it's right next to the GO station, so it just makes sense to do the growth there. And with the development there, it could pay for an alternate road for the farmers and alleviate some of the traffic there. And with the Bradford bypass coming, that will definitely alleviate a lot of traffic headaches that we have there and allow us to even build more. So it just makes sense. And just a secondary comment on expanding the MTSA, I totally agree. It doesn't make sense because then it actually handcuffs us as to what we can and cannot do. So I agree with the approach taken there.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I've got Councillor Dykey and I've got Deputy Mayor.
I just want to make a few comments. I felt the opportunity for us to meet the planning staff one-on-one as teams was a great opportunity to talk about this report. It's one thing to read it, but we had a chance to talk to yourself, Alan, and you explained things. You know, in the past we had 82% of single-family dwellings, and then when you look at 2051, you know, now it's possibility go down to 52% for single-family dwellings. So you can see how things are going to change. You know, it's very costly to produce that large single-family dwelling, and you can see how the province, the planning, and how the planning is going to go. You're going to have smaller. Everything's going to be smaller, a little bit more denser, as we fill out. But you know, as we have this roadmap looking for the future of 2051, you know, we have to all consider and well plan our water, our infrastructure, our roads, our sewers. This all has to tie in as the big puzzles, all the pieces put together for the next 30 years. So I thought well-written reports, very, very detailed, and I just want to say when it came to process, it was a great opportunity for us to sit around the table, throw ideas out, get feedback, and have a one-on-one with our staff and really understand the report fully. So I just wanted to make that a statement. Thanks.
Thank you. I've got next Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Alan Manna, for the report. It's a well-written report, and also, as the others said, it was very beneficial for those extra sessions. I know what's involved in it, and it does benefit. I know what the intent is with this, and I don't have an issue with it. The question I have is, I know it speaks about funding sources for the actual work. What does this mean to the timeline, to the original scope of work that we have? And can this be covered with the funding that was approved for this project? I don't know if that's the question for you or for our CAO.
Our manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Deputy Mayor Sandu. So in terms of the timeline that this may have on the growth management project, I would suggest that we already have the established work plan with WSP. We would remain on course with advancing consultation for the Phase 1 OPAs as we've presented here today through Mana's report. and that would carry on as planned. Should council provide staff with this additional direction through the further report that we would provide to council, we would identify those additional details, timing, anticipated costs, and so forth, and likely in a way that would run parallel with the balance of growth management work, and not necessarily serve as a precursor to any of the growth management work continuing. And in terms of funding sources, that would certainly be something that we would look into as well. There are opportunities, and we can certainly unpack that further through that future report.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I've got Councillor Harper next, and then Councillor.
Just a point of clarification, Mayor. Can I talk about something else? Do I have to talk about this amendment right now? It relates to the report, but I'll hold my question until we're done with this amendment then, please.
Okay, so we got the amendment on the floor. I don't think we have any further questions, so we're going to vote on the amendment, and then we'll go back to the report. Okay, so this is to vote on this. So this is the amendment. So I had to move it a second. Go ahead, for clarity, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Alan, my question is, because I know we all met and definitely was a great meeting, very excited with the plan that was presented. And of course, we talked about Bridge Street and knowing already the challenge right now. But we were also looking at Dissette, which is what the plan is stating where we start. So my question is, with this amendment, will it delay whatever is already planned and ready to go to the next phase? Because we know definitely that we would approach this eventually, but we wanted to start, this era that is accessible now, right? So for me, we already know that this was an issue. We already know that it's a future site that we will be looking into eventually, but this is where we're at right now. I like to focus on what's before us right now, before adding, it just makes things so complicated. So I just want to know, will this detour or delay any project moving forward if we should now focus on a broader project, including this with the set?
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Duhaney. So from a work planning perspective, I would say no. We have the trajectory set for the growth management work, although admittedly there is the staff time component of it to run growth management. Phase 1, intensification first. Phase 2, settlement area boundary expansion review, while also adding an additional component. By design, we could certainly propose that it be run in parallel. There would certainly be staffing resources that we would need to make sure both components are adequately resourced and supported internally to maintain the momentum that they would each have.
Thank you so much for that, Alan. Because this is not a project that we're going to even start, we're looking to basically go forward with the master plan that was presented before us, right? This is not something that's going to happen during this time. So definitely it's needed, but I just think it's just prematurely presented. That's just it's necessary, I get it, but I just think it's premature because right now we're focusing on growth and development, and to add something that we're not even going to tackle during the same time, it's great, but I just think the timing right now, it is coming, and definitely we're going to get there, but I just don't think I would be comfortable to, if it's going to take away from whatever, even the deadline, if it's going to take away from the project, because we're going to put more time into that. For that reason, I would not be interested in focusing on that now if it's going to take away from the goal and what we're trying to achieve right now. But it's amazing, but I just think it's premature right now.
Want to respond to that, Alan?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Leduc. So certainly understand the perspective, and should council provide staff with this direction this evening, if that were to occur, that's certainly something that we could plan on unpacking in that staff report as well, to provide a bit of a holistic review of what the consequences might be of looking to run an additional capital project alongside growth management in a more geographically scoped way along the Bridge Street corridor.
Okay, and I've got Councillor Scott again.
I just wanted to respond to Councillor Duhaney's questions. I think, as the manager said, we would run this in parallel. I'd also just point out that it was the original intention that Bridge Street be part of the MTSA in a more meaningful way. The floodplain constraints weren't solvable within the existing scope of work. So the report suggests we then need to do this work to bring Bridge Street more meaningfully into the MTSA. So my intention isn't to have us go do something separate. It's to have us do something that originally was part of the initial mandate, couldn't be done within that scope of work because of the floodplain issue. But if we solve the floodplain issue, we bring it more meaningfully into the MTSA. So they really do run in parallel, and this report anticipates us doing this work. My suggestion to staff over the last few days was, let's give you the direction to go do the work that you're already flagging for us needs to be done.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Further comments or questions? Okay, got the amendment on the floor. All in favor as amended? Okay, amendment. Okay, and now we're back to the report, so Councillor Harbour, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to talk a little bit about attainable housing language in the report. It's still a bit soft, in my opinion, because it just says it's attainable housing is referenced, but it's not detailed in policy tools, targets, or definitions. So when it does come back to us, if I could get more definitive specificity, I can't say it right. More specifics though to what attaining housing policies are, relating to those 3 points that I just pointed out, that'd be much appreciated.
Okay, noted. Thank you, staff. Mana, go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Harper, I believe that it was indicated in the policy direction report, or maybe perhaps in Watson's report, they recommended that the town undertake a separate housing needs assessment to further look into what kinds of policies and approaches the town could implement to essentially provide more attainable, affordable housing. So there was that recommendation. It is a little complicated to provide detailed policies within the scope of work for that, but we can certainly clarify and provide more direction and definitions for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that reply. Okay, so we have the recommendation on the floor as amended. So it's that report PLN 2025-26 titled Growth Management Project Part 1 be received for information and as amended. Okay. Oh, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have two clarification questions. One, in the next steps, it talks about the next steps, but it doesn't say the timeline. Year, 2 years. It's not something that's going to come very soon. What is that target, even if it's a target right now? And the second is, in the 400 employment secondary plan, it says restrict residential and major retail uses. I agree with residential, but if you can clarify for me the major retail, if we get, say, I'm just going to use a name, if Costco or Amazon or something comes up and say they want to invest here and do something, to me they're major retail. Are we restricting that?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Sandu, with regards to the timeline, the aim is to begin the formal circulation and public consultation process almost immediately. And our hope is that by the fall of 2025, that we could wrap up part 1. I do also want to mention that the work for part 2 is also underway as we speak, but it's not yet in a state where we can provide detailed information to council and members of the public. So the open houses, public meetings, these are all going to be held in the coming months. And if everything goes according to plan, we hope to have a series of amendments in front of you by fall. In relation to your question about the employment lands, I will pass it on to Mr. Weep.
Thank you, Mona. Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Sandhu. So with respect to the opportunities for permitting major retail along the forwarded employment lands, this is an area that's a bit complex and convoluted in provincial legislation and policy. Since the growth plan came out in 2006, an employment area was generally defined as an area, a cluster of uses with economic and commercial activity. So the idea of an employment area was quite broad, and it had a certain status where to remove land from employment, there was a long series of tests. The idea being to protect critical employment land for the long term. Over the last couple of years, what is considered to be an employment area has essentially been downscoped to manufacturing, processing, fabrication, the more traditional industrial type uses. And our official plan designation and zoning provisions have not yet caught up with the new framework of what an employment area is. Many of the industrial and designations and zone categories allow for manufacturing, fabrication, processing. They also allow for other things which would no longer fit the definition of an employment area under provincial legislation. So the proposed policies that we have presented today, where they specifically might not permit certain components of retail activities, was a starting point in the proposed policies for the area, in the spirit of looking to enable the town to protect those lands for employment uses for the long term. The more uses are allowed that don't fit within the current definition of employment area, the simpler it could be for someone to pursue a conversion to a non-employment use. It could be commercial, could be residential. So essentially, what's an employment area today has been downscoped relative to what it used to be. And that's something that was specifically taken into consideration in proposing these policies, that in a way that might enable the town to protect the employment lands, but that's certainly something that we're looking to advance to consultation, should there be a council and community desire to provide different levels of flexibility than proposed.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, see any further questions or comments? We have the recommendation on the floor as amended. I have a mover and seconder, correct? Yep. Okay, no further comments or questions. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We are on to 12.2, economic development mid-year update. So we have recommendations that report EDO 2025-3 titled Economic Development 2025 Mid-Year Update be received for information. I have a mover, Councillor Scott, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Questions or concerns with this one? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment that at a time when our economic condition is precarious, we have the trade war, we have post-pandemic inflation and the recovery from all of that, there's some good news here. We're creating local jobs, but I think even more specifically, over the past 4 years, our industrial commercial property tax share has gone up by nearly 3.5%. So nearly 1% a year has switched over to industrial commercial, which has been a longstanding goal of the town. I think less than 10% of our tax base is from employment. Most of it's from residential, and we want to shift that over time so it's more affordable for residents. And for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been seeing some positive incremental momentum in that regard, and hopefully it will continue to move in the right direction.
Yes, well said, because that was the most important part of this report, is that we've shifted our ICI residential rates by, like you say, 3.5% over the last little while. And that's due to Toromont and other businesses coming to our community and coming to Bradford and setting up shop here. So it's quite good, and the perfect number is to get to that 70-30% range. That's what we really want to get to, and that's why those employment lines are so important. And I want to say this is a great report. It is a good report. I appreciate it. Lots of interactions. We've had lots of meetings with potential people wanting to come to Bradford, so quite happy with our Economic Development Office for doing a great job making sure that we're attracting as best we can. So I've got a question over here from Councillor Giordano.
No, I just going to echo a little bit what Councillor Scott said. So I definitely agree. The issue too is we've got the industrial commercial area, which is super premium industrial commercial area. What we also need to look at to get that 70-30 split that you're talking about, Mayor, is we need that commercial industrial retail kind of area. So the condo commercial industrial areas, because right now it's not affordable to run businesses unless you have a mega business to go into those large scale industrial complexes. And that's the caramel secret that we're missing here in Bradford.
No, you're right. The more we do, the better off we are. And we had 8 grand openings in the last bit, but we look for more. So you're right. A big mark to go after. Councillor Harper next.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll take this time to actually just point out that fact is that if we actually keep constraining or pushing towards overdevelopment in regards to densification in certain areas, then that number will slide back down. So we have to make sure that we have that balance. So I'm just going to throw that nugget out there right now, and that'll be for conversation for later.
Okay, thank you for that. Further comments or questions? Councillor Dykey?
Just want to mention, we all attended the grand opening of the Tormont, and it's, that took, I would say, almost 20 years, or 15 years at least, to come to the table, and it wasn't easy. But we're so glad that, all the hoops were jumped over, and there's always rumors when they were possibly buying the property, but there's a company that stuck with the town of Bradford, Gwillimbury, delivered, and so many jobs. It's wonderful to see how many people are employed just by one company alone, and how many they need up to another 200 employees. They're crying for more people, and it's great to see, especially in this downturn in this economy. So it's hopefully we can land more. But saying that, hopefully that we could have in the future we have more variety of industrial land, because that industrial land for a mid-size financial business model isn't possible for a lot of businesses to be able to buy that land and to build these buildings. So we need something like Joe mentioned about condos, and I understand there's some condos along the 400 that have the whole project is on hold right now due to financing and stuff like that. But I hope that we can provide more opportunity in the future for more affordable mid-range projects to provide more jobs for small retail or wholesale or industrial products in the future, to provide more in the economic side of things.
Yeah, great point again, and I just want to maybe throw a couple numbers out there again from this report, because it's a really detailed report. I suggest everybody to try and have a read of this, but they supported 3 businesses locally to gain $210,000 in grant funding from Nottowatuck Futures, worked with Choice Hotels, which is the Comfort Inn, to bring in 100 new employees in that business. Worked hard with the Deputy Mayor and myself from the county level. We were looking at CWELC funding, which is child daycare funding for $10 a day. Secured extra seats right here in Bradford for daycare, which is a very important part in our community. So we were able to secure funding with that. So lots of good things in this report. Lots of great opportunities for our Economic Development Office, and they've done a great job. And we look forward to further reports like this, seeing more commercial, industrial investment in our community, because that is the big one. That is where we gain the most. So, Okay, any further comments or questions? I read the, I have a mover and second for this, correct? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. On to the next report, 12.3, request for part lot control exemption, 69 and 71 Luxury Avenue. I have a recommendation that PLN 2025-22 be received for information and that the necessary bylaw be presented to council for Lot 5 and Registered Plan 1516 to be granted exemption from the part lot control provisions of the Planning Act. Move second to put this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Giordano, seconded by Councillor Verkuyk. Question concerns with this? It's just going to divide the property so they can split it up to sell to Councillor Giordano.
So I'm kind of torn with this a little bit here because when you look at the map, it's all detached homes. And now they're going to be splitting the lot and building, I guess, two semis. Is this in Councillor Dykey's? This is in your word, right? I'm going to defer my opinion until I maybe hear from the councillor from the area to see what his appetite is for this, or if there's residents that have had any concerns with this. I like the idea of, transitioning from certain types of homes into new modern style homes, but it changes the fabric of a community, and so, of that neighborhood. And I don't know if I'm really in support of that. I don't know the neighborhood well enough to really understand that, yeah, this is something that's definitely needed, or this is a great thing to do.
Councillor Dykey.
Since you brought that forward, Joe, I grew up in an area, and I must say this was a real shock for me. But at the end of the day, it doesn't. I'm gonna be blunt about it. It doesn't fit the area, in my opinion. But legally, our zoning bylaw allows this, and it really hits home. I never seen so many emails hit to me on that particular area, and everybody was very upset. Everybody doesn't like a lot of the neighbors aren't, they weren't for this development, but unfortunately, it's legal. It's in our bylaw. They're allowed to do this now. That's their style of building. I wish that it wouldn't have happened as high as they did it, because it really shadows the neighbors, and really is difficult. I took a drive to 16th Avenue and was it 16th Avenue and Leslie, I believe it was 16th Avenue and anyways in Markham, and same thing is happening. Once I heard about this 3 months ago, I took a drive, and same thing in different areas. The older homes, they're tearing them down. They're going high, big monster homes, multi-homes, one big lots cut into four, and I'm not in favor for it. So at the end of the day, this is legal in the Planning Act, the whole 9 yards, but it's for me and my professional as a counselor. I don't think it fits the area, because like I said, they're all single family homes. They're all big lots. There's a lot of 80-foot lots. I've walked the street many years up and down that street, and there's 80-foot lots, there's 70-foot lots. Unfortunately, there's going to be just already developers buying up these big 80-foot lots, and I think unfortunately you're going to see more of this take place, and it's going to really uproot the area. So it's hard. It's a hard pill for me to swallow, but this is change, and I'm not for change for this. I'm old-fashioned when it comes to this kind of development, but it's hard. So and I'm just shocked. Everybody, my phone didn't stop ringing, and it breaks my heart to see this. It's modern, but it doesn't fit to those homes. Those homes were built in 1970. The Zima family built Luxury Avenue, lot by lot, and it's a shock. It was a big shock to me as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, carry. Can I see it again? Hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thank you. Carried. All right, we are now moving on to 12.4, request for hold removal. Applicant Ambrea Bradford Limited, municipal address 3287 line 9. Recommendation of report PLN 2025-34 be received, and that council pass a bylaw to remove the hold H1 symbol for the lands municipally known as 3287 line 9, such that the removal of the hold H1 provision takes effect upon the execution and registration of site plan agreement for the development of the lands. Move second to put this on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Scott. Questions or concerns with this one? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, request for staff reports. We're up to 13. Do we have any requests for staff reports tonight? Councillor Verkuyk.
Yeah, I have two requests, and the first one is for a staff report regarding opportunities for affordable and deeply affordable housing. We've talked a lot about it, and I realize that the funding needs to come from upper level governments, but we need to be ready when opportunities arise with identified properties. And whether it's town-owned land or private land or partnership, we just need to have an inventory that if a new grant, the province and the federal government's coming out, they're going to come out pretty heavy on housing and affordable housing. And we need to be ready for that. And it's going to help us hit our target with get a proper mix and get money flowing, because right now $1.2 million homes aren't being built. And I've sent the CAO a bit of background on it, and I think there's enough there to go with that. And I'll go to the second one in a second once we finish with this one.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I can tell you, the Deputy Mayor and I were at the FCM this week, and that was the topic right across the country. Right across the country. And their theme there was stronger together. And affordable housing was a big one, cost of living. And the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, came to the event, and he spoke about a housing crisis and how he's going to... Wow. Okay. And he spoke about actually setting up a housing program. So they're going to open up the half funding again, the housing accelerator funding, and he's going to come very aggressive. I look forward to his meetings with the First Minister that he was holding yesterday and today. I haven't seen, no, Sunday and Monday. I haven't heard about the outcome of that yet, but I look forward to see what the major projects were that he's doing. So, okay, so we have a mover for this request. Can I get a seconder? By Deputy Mayor. All in favor of this staff report request? Oh, okay, sorry, go ahead.
More of a comment, if I could. When it comes to I get the ask in regards to the type of properties or what we could have, but again, I'd still like to have a little bit more definitions in regards to what affordable housing is and the language surrounding it and who it will support.
Yeah, that's a difficult topic. Do you, who would like to take that subject on for affordability? Because it's a difficult topic to identify affordability. That's something that...
Well, they could look at it in the staff report, but I'd like it identified clearly in there, because when you're talking about affordable housing, you're talking about who comes to Bradford. And that could be the problem or the issue that either sells it or gets disinterested very quickly.
Okay, so we'll see if we can have that into the report. If it's in our official plan, we'll certainly have that in there somehow. Okay, further comments or questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Let's see again, just to make sure. I've got some coming up and some not, so thank you. I got it. Okay, got it. I see some not, so okay, your second request.
This comes up fairly often in our traffic mitigation strategy when it comes to traffic lights. One solution is mentioned, red light cameras. We've been talking about it for this whole entire council. Nothing's really happened, and I'd like a staff report on the feasibility of instituting a red light camera system in BWG.
Okay, thank you. I was kind of shocked when I heard our corporate director said that there's nothing done about it, because we have talked about it many times, and it was in the, I thought it was in the procurement policy. Yeah, moved by, seconded by Councilor Giordano. So questions or concerns with this? Councillor Giordano?
Yeah, I was actually shocked when Councillor Ben brought this up over email, and we're like, yeah, we've already been working on this, the Traffic and Safety Committee, for a long time. And then it's like, no, it's actually recommended that we bring a staff report forward to get it going. I'm like, oh, well, let's do it. We've been waiting too. So, yeah, I fully support this. And there's a few locations that were already identified that were, definitely in need. I think it's just, I think the last time we talked about this, there's a different type of processing that takes place for the cameras versus the ASE cameras and all that other stuff. And that was, we had to get through the pilot first and whatnot. But to your point, if we need to do a staff report, let's get it done sooner than later, because I think those red light cameras are super dangerous. Like they're very good to get rid of the super dangerous behaviors that are there, because there's a few, especially on Holland Street, there's a few people that are habitually running those reds seconds and multi-seconds after they've already turned red. So anything to stop that, I'm all for.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Ferragini next, and then Councillor Dykey.
Thank you. When Councillor Verkuyk was first talking about the staff report, I mean, it makes sense, because originally we had mentioned multiple times to look into this at the safety committee, however, the traffic safety committee. However, because we were so engaged in the ASC program, the speed cameras, we had to wait till that program came to an end to then further the program to include that. So that's why, from my understanding when we had those meetings, that's why it hadn't been brought up to this point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dykey?
I was shocked as well, but I know yourself at Good Roads, you were you talked to a few people at Good Roads about it as well. So now I'm looking forward to see a report. I want to see some action on this, because there is areas downtown and on Holland Street that you I invite anybody on a Friday afternoon to come downtown and watch how many people run a red light, and it happens. So I wanted to see staff report on this as well.
Okay, perfect. I have a mover seconder, so all in favor? Good, carried. Thank you. Further staff report, request for staff reports. Okay, seeing none. Recommendation that council resolve itself, resolve itself in the committee whole at 8:08. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Verkuyk. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Colleagues, do you need a break, or we should keep going? Perfect, thank you. Okay, I call this meeting to order at 8:09 p.m. Any declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature? Okay, none declared at this time. Getting right into staff reports. 15.3.1 ADU zoning amendment options report, PLN 2025-21 recommendation. That report PLN 2025-21 titled ADU zoning amendment options report be received for information. That all written and oral submissions received at the public meetings held on May 28th and September 10th, 2024 have been considered in the deliberation and decision. That pursuant to Section 34, subsection 17 of the Planning Act, no further public notice is required. That council endorse option, there's three options that for council to pick one, as outlined in Section 3.4 of the report, PLN 2025-21, as the basis for amending the town zoning bylaw, and that staff be directed to prepare and bring forward the necessary bylaws for council's approval to implement the selected option. Mover and a second, please. Moved by Councillor Verkuyk, second, Councillor Scott. Councillor Verkuyk, go ahead.
Are we now having to pick which option to move? So I would like to move option 1.
Okay.
And the reason being, can we have discussion now, or we need a seconder?
If your seconder is okay with the option that's proposed, it can be just a friendly amendment to have that option. Or I do have let's just go with a amendment moved by Councillor Verkuyk and second by Councillor Scott. Okay. Is that okay? I'm looking for your guidance.
So you can have the discussion prior to an amendment being seconded and kind of get the general sense. And then once councilors are ready to move and second a motion, that can be put on the floor. But you can have the discussion at this point.
Turn your mic on. Okay, yeah, so we'll go right now. You have the floor to speak on this, and if option one is what you're leaning towards, you can also talk about that.
Yeah, so the reason, and I have a question for the CAO as part of this. Already in the R3, 4, I think 2, you can already have 3 ADUs. It's only R1. And R1 already contains homes that with lot coverage with backyards that can't fit an ADU. So you're probably looking at 98% of the properties in R1 that would never have an ADU. And of the maybe 2% of the properties that could have an ADU, probably 95% of those residents would never consider having an a detached ADU. Sorry, I'm dealing with detached ADUs. So there's really, you're not going to see a massive proliferation of 3 ADUs in the R1 zone anyways, because you also need to have 5 parking spots to have 3 ADUs. Who's got room for 5 parking spots? It's just not going to happen. But yet having 3 ADUs will allow us potentially for more federal funding, etc. And maybe our CEO can just enlighten us on what residential zones already allow for 3 ADUs.
Okay, Mr. McKnight.
It's probably best to turn to our planners on a question like that. We do have, and they can elaborate on this, we have existing permissions for what's called a multi-unit dwelling, which permits more than 4 to 7, something along those lines. But to Councillor Verkuyken's point, practically speaking, there are very limited opportunities for that actually to be delivered. And a good reference point for that is that the town has permitted accessory dwellings since 2010. And I think it's fair to say we have not had a proliferation or a huge take up in that regard. It's obviously up to the property owner whether or not they want to pursue it. And then it comes down to, if they do, can they be accommodated on their property? But it's probably best to invite our planners up to get into that more detail.
Does that help or, well, go ahead. Do you have anything further to add to that?
Certainly. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sandhu. So Mr. McKnight is indeed correct that the multiple unit permissions would already allow for up between 3 to 6 units in 3 of the 7, 8 residential zone categories that apply within serviced residential areas. And the other 5 residential zone categories would not currently provide up to 4. But they do provide up to 3 because of the previous restrictions are superseded by Bill 23, as outlined in Mana's report.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Councillor Verkuyken?
Fine.
Okay, I have Councillor Giordano and then Councillor Dykey.
So I'm going to ask a question first. Between the current and option 3, is there any difference in the amount of units? So you're saying there's like 5, 6, 7, whatever you can have per unit right now, but they both say 3 units on the current versus the option 3. So just maybe clarify that for a sec, and then I'll go next again.
Certainly. Thank you. Through Deputy Mayor Sandhu to Councillor Giordano. The most significant difference between the current zoning as superseded by Bill 23 and option 3 would really be in the standards for the detached ADU provision. Right now, for instance, it would have a minimum side yard setback of 1.2 meters. That wouldn't be proposed to change. The rear yard setback currently would be at 7.5 meters, whereas under option 3, it's proposed to be reduced to 1.2 as well, consistent with detached accessory buildings over 3 meters in residential zones. And then last but not least, the current zoning would allow for a maximum of 3 meters in height, and option 3 would allow for up to 4 meters, and that is somewhat consistent as well with the height restriction, the modified height limitation for accessory buildings presented through the general amendment that was advanced to public consultation in the last couple of months.
Follow-up?
Yeah, so I like the current zoning, and I'll tell you why. There's nobody stopping the average person right now from putting an ADU in on a proper property that deserves one. So if you've got a wider lot, if you've got a detached garage, or you want to put a basement apartment in, you can do it. There's nobody holding a gun to our heads. We're putting the gun to our own heads on this. So I'm not interested in doing anything additional like that. Number two is, I get a lot of comments like, oh, I would never live next to a trailer park. Well, you know what? A trailer park has a lot more land and space and a bigger unit than these ADUs offer. So I'm not really a fan of ADUs in general. If somebody has to put a basement apartment in, or if you have an interest on buying or having a larger lot and you want to have, multi-generational living, those types of processes to get those already exist. I'm not in favor of upping the ante over and above even what the province is saying. At the end of the day, we're trying to maintain neighborhoods and places where people want to live. And at the end of the day, I don't want to have apartments in my backyard or my neighbor's backyard or all around the town. And I'll tell you, you guys made some comments earlier, which actually it really makes me angry. You said, oh, we don't have a lot of people that are doing this right now. You know how many people are licking their lips waiting for us to go to this so they can come in, start buying up and slapping these things in, 4, 5, 6 people, 7, 8 people per lot? It's absolutely insane, and I don't support that. You look at any college community or university community area where they allow, severe ADUs, and that's all it is full of investors buying them and carving them up. And I don't want to live in that community. I think we have processes in place for ADUs already, and I'm fine the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Daikie?
I have a lot to say on this as well. The province looks at this a way of providing housing. I don't. We planned for years. We planned good quality planning for our single, detached, semi-detached townhouses area, and I feel that by adding these units, you're causing problems in the infrastructure of putting more sewers, more demand on the water. We only have 1,800 units of water for the future till 2030. That's going to be really a strain on the more use of waters. Now, if a family member, for their grandmother or grandparents or their child, if there's special circumstances, if they put it in for a short term, putting up a bond or whatever, I could buy into that. Like we have had out in the country where somebody puts in a granny flat and then they remove it in a certain time. But to have this stuff happen permanently, I'm not for it. We have a lot of infrastructure with homes that you could put a basement apartment in, or I know some builders are building in Bond Head homes that you could actually put 3 units already in a home, very, very well designed, is already laid out, and all the planning of infrastructure and everything is already there. But to add additional unit to the back is causing a lot of problems in neighborhoods, hospitals, schools, fire, more water drain off from the housing units, like the water that runs off onto the units. All this stuff has to be studied, and I'm not convinced of this way of planning. I just think it puts on too much stress on our community. For years we had great planning. I just think I don't want to see Bradford get turned upside down with a high volume of people in the area. We never planned this community that way, so I'm just against it, and that's how I feel strongly on it.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Scott?
So I want to share some of my thinking on this. We talk about planning the community. Growing up in town, urban Bradford had a mix of housing, my ward today, Councillor Harper, Councillor Dykes, has 6 plexes and 8 plexes and apartment buildings and older homes with above the garage units in the laneway out back. That was what the town was. The change that has occurred to the town in my lifetime is the planned, I think the term was garden variety homes that came ever westward, gobbling up farmland, that were planned. They were planned to look that way by design, and they don't have a mix of housing in those neighborhoods, for better or for worse. Some people love it, other people, they call it cookie cutter housing. Ultimately, where I come down on this is 80 years ago, we invented public planning because the impacts of major corporations were out of control in terms of environmental harm in the cities, and we didn't want a factory next to housing. That's fair and fine. But for the past, say, 50 years, we have weaponized planning to exclude people that we don't want in our neighborhoods. Whether that is for good reason or for bad reason, good planning makes good neighbors. I get that. It also keeps people out of the neighborhood. And that, I think we've seen in recent years, has started to be opposed because people can weaponize well-intended environmental law to delay a project happening indefinitely. We've seen it with infrastructure projects in our own community. When it comes to accessory dwelling units, right now, by law, 3 are permitted everywhere in the urban part of town. As I think Councillor Verkuyk was getting at, in most of town, we actually permit multi-unit dwellings of between 4 to 7. So your 4plexes, your 6plexes, your 7plexes, etc. And so what would we actually be changing? I hear Councillor Giordano's concerns that if we take away all the restrictions, it'll be a Wild West. The libertarian in me wants to say that people should be allowed to do what they want to do on their own land while still being mindful of their neighbors. That's the balance we have to strike. When we talk about getting rid of restrictions, I still see 2 key restrictions existing. The first is the market. Not everyone has a spare $250,000 to build a structure connected to the existing sewage and water in their backyard, etc. And by the way, it is better for the environment and the town's bottom line to use existing servicing than it is to do greenfield development, extending the servicing and paying for it. The second restriction, in addition to the market, that I still see is physics. If you can't fit it, you can't build it. And so I think, personally, I like option 2. I think that is a good compromise that puts a little bit more restrictions in place and tries to strike a balance. But option 1, I don't think we need to pretend like there will suddenly be no restrictions. People have to be able to afford to do this, and they have to be able to fit doing it. And if you can't fit it, it's not going to work. We're not going to permit it. And so even if you do have deep pocket individuals buying up housing, if the land can't sustain the use, it's not going to work. So as I say, I'm personally most comfortable with option 2 because it tries to put some common sense parameters in place. But I don't want us to pretend as if option 1 is happening in a vacuum where anything goes, because there are still the very real constraints that exist in day-to-day life of what someone could actually manage to do or afford to do on a property.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Councillor Harper? All right, here we go.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To me, when you look at this, this is not planning, it's capitulation. A funding carrot that comes with bureaucratic sticks, okay? When we're talking about options 1 and 2, you're talking about selling on hope for federal funding. Funding that this town council and this town was denied Housing Accelerator Fund by the federal government that didn't support us. So there's no guarantee that BWG gets a dime. So putting in option 1 is to try to actually meet that to get the funding. But we're already meeting the law. Why go further? We already have clear legal obligations, and anything more is pushing an agenda that residents didn't vote for. They didn't. This council answers to Bradford residents, not housing ministers, federal grant officers, or urban, density activists. We can't let our infrastructure become more stretched and thin just to tick a provincial box for a hope on housing accelerator fund. Planning should be responsible, not reckless, and we're gambling. We're literally gambling BWG's long-term livability just to try for a chance at a temporary grant for money. Well, let me tell you, option one is a Trojan horse for overdevelopment. My colleague from Ward 4 nailed it. They're waiting to come in and overdevelop. We just talked about an area in Ward 7 on luxury where they had the money to ask for a splitting of a lot to modernize a building. What's the difference for that? Those are planned approaches. But this won't actually address the concerns that residents have. Resident concerns like parking overload, emergency services strains, infrastructure limits, school overcrowding, which we're already seeing. We actually have neighborhood character. That'll erode. There's actually lighting nuisance issues. There's rear yard safety and constructions that will actually occur with these instances. Yes, I understand my colleague's points where it talks about, if they don't have the funds or the space to do it, well, people will find loopholes. We have. Every level of government does find loopholes. Every developer finds loopholes, asks for amendments. They'll bring it back. So it's nothing to stop them from coming back to here and saying, oh, can I get an amendment where it shortens up the actual radius for that one lot? We're already meeting the legal limit here. I don't want to see overdeveloped patchwork or mini apartment blocks in housing areas. I want to preserve trust with voters. I want to meet our legal obligation without sacrificing the way of our life here in BWG. So I am not against option one.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Verkuyk.
Okay, so just a couple. The one thing, there was somebody said something about college towns and mayhem with housing. In my experience, from even the days when I was in university and from my kids being in university, they don't do ADUs. They just rent out a house to 4 students. It's a boarding house. They're not doing ADUs, and half the time the kids that are in the basement don't have an emergency exit, a proper emergency exit, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of a red herring. The other thing is, since 2022, the permissions in the entire town went from 1 ADU to 3 ADUs, and I don't see anyone breaking down the parapets to build more housing in our subdivisions. Do you see it? So we've gone from 1 to 3. Where is it happening? Give me examples. And the other thing about Luxury Avenue, that's not an ADU. That's a conversion to a semi. It's 2 separate houses. They're not ADUs. So we're all just sort of just ranting about stuff. It's not happening. They're not banging down the door to build 3 ADUs in a single family home.
Thank you, Councillor Verkuyk. We had ADU allowances since 2010. Agreed that in November last year went to 3 with Provincial Bill 23, I think it was 2022. Yeah. So I have Councillor Dehaney, and then I'll go back to Councillor Harper.
So I'll just call personal privilege, just so that we don't get convoluted here, if I can.
Go ahead. What's the personal privilege?
Well, you just basically commented on my comments of integrity there, so I just like to rebuttal in a respectful way.
I will allow that, but I did not see it that way. It's just his comment to what you said about the luxury park. It's his view against yours. But for this, I'll allow it if you want to make a quick comment, but then I'm going to go to Councillor Dehaney.
With respect, thank you very much. When you're talking about we go from 1 ADU to 3 ADUs and you don't see people are knocking down the doors, that just proves my point that it's not wanted by the public. So why are we going further than having to push that agenda?
Councillor Harper, I appreciate and I respect your passion about this. You're passionate about this issue. The other councillors might have a different view, and they're equally going to share their views. and at the end of the day, it's will of the council, and that's will be, so with that, I'm gonna go to Councillor Dehaney.
Thank you, Deputy Sando. So again, I'm gonna go back to why I was elected. So number one, I was elected to advocate for the residents. I am not hired by the town of Bradford at all. I don't work with the town of Bradford. I work for the people of Bradford. I am more for building community than building housing. I do understand that there is a definitely need for more housing in our community. But I like to work with whatever we already have before us. And I believe if we can work with what we have, master it, and then if we see ways where we need to expand and have maybe more ADUs, then yes. But I think we need to exhaust what we have before us. I don't even think it has not been exhausted yet. So let's work at what we have before us, and then we can expand. I find out where we have stuff before us, but I find out we tend to expand before even working on what we have before us. So we already have ADU permission, I think 3, right? So why not just work with that? Let's master that. Let's see how that is working, right? And then you open up later on to 4. But at this point, I am gonna work with what is before us right now. And later on, of course, I will definitely entertain it. But at this point, I'll just work with what is before it. It's too chaotic. It's just all over the place. And I just think we need to get back to the drawing board and focus on the master plan of the town, the vision of the town that is before us, instead of adding all these things. And it's just so chaotic. And I think we just need to focus with what is before us. And that's what I'm going to do. Focus on what is before us and just move on with it. Building more community than building houses. That's what I'm all about.
Thank you, Councillor Dehaney. Councillor Ferragini.
Thank you. I know it's been mentioned a few times around the table already, but there is a law in place, a bylaw in place that you can already add 2 existing 2 ADUs to your lot. With the options that were brought forward, I believe was it to clean up the rules around it, because our existing rules don't follow the Planning Act? Is that what it was, Alan? Because when we bring in these options, I will say that I'm not a fan of option 1 or 2 because it allows the 4 units. I would stick to with the 3. And one of the things that throws me off with option 1 is that if somebody does have the setbacks in their backyard and they have the parking spots out front and they choose to do the ADU outside, the 5.4 meter height allowance for option 1 I am not a fan of, especially because that overshadows the backyard neighbors, closer residential units, and that's what they have to deal with in their backyard. So I am of the opinion that option 3 is one that I would like to vote for as being more restrictive. But if Alan or Mana, if you could just clarify that these options were put in front of us because it was to clean up the wording and the rules within the Planning Act, because the way ours is currently being done, it's a bit more restrictive. However, it doesn't even follow the Planning Act rules and also would cause a lot of confusion with the residents.
Okay, Mr. Weed.
Certainly, thank you, Deputy Mayor Sandhu, through you to Councillor Ferragini. Yes, short answer is yes. This project was initiated in recognition that the town's zoning bylaw predates Bill 23 by about 12 years, did not consider detached accessory dwelling units, did not consider up to 2 accessory dwelling units in addition to the main dwelling. And admittedly, the performance standards that are listed in the current zoning column, so where it indicates that a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters is what would apply to a detached ADU, that's not a direct provision of our zoning bylaw that says a detached ADU has to be 7.5 meters back, because our 15-year-old zoning bylaw did not contemplate detached ADUs. That is the result of a staff reading of the bylaw and how it would most logically be essentially retrofitted in a sense. I suppose that's a an improper framing. Bill 23 came after it. Essentially attempting to project a 15-year-old bylaw on 3-year-old Planning Act provisions. By definition, a detached building with a dwelling unit is a detached dwelling. So the provisions of the parent zone apply that requires a greater rear yard setback. But that also allows that same dwelling to be up to 11 meters high. And that's the reason why these provisions have been interpreted and applied as listed under the current zoning provisions, because that staff felt would be consistent with how the zoning bylaw was meant to apply. The options presented in the table in the staff report certainly were the result of the direction that staff received to provide council with options for consideration with a gradient of relative impact, and also in a way that seeks to modernize the zoning bylaw to at least consider in principle what Bill 23 already has done to the bylaw, but in a way that hasn't thought through all of the different provisions. And admittedly, it couldn't have with hundreds of municipal zoning bylaws across the province. I hope that helps answer your question.
Follow up?
Nope, just thank you for clarifying, and I'm personally not in favor of option 1, especially because when we were at the open houses and the public meetings and stuff, we heard the residents and the concerns that were brought up. So I would be in favor of option 3, which would be the most restrictive for it, and it would also have the height, the heights lowered. They wouldn't be as high as what's looked at in option 1.
Okay, colleagues, right now I have Mayor Leduc, Councillor Scott, and Councillor Giordano, and then after that I'm going to ask one of the members to put the option on the floor. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm actually in support of 1 or 2. I would prefer 1. It's more permissive. I mean, if you want to tackle the affordability, this is one way of going about it. You're not going to get a run on ADUs like that. If I own a property that I want to be able to build for my children, I want to have that right to do that. So in here, it started back in 24. It was about cleaning up our zoning, making sure our zoning complied with Bill 23. In response to these legislative changes, to provide the town with tools to support orderly development, protect public health and safety. And this is what this was all started about. It's verses 3 or 4, and it's in Bill 23. We can do 3 as of right. I would say I would go with option 1, but if somebody puts option 2 on the floor, I would support option 2 also. I want to be as flexible as possible, and I think it was said by Councillor Scott, you have to physically be fit to do that. You have to be physically fit that property to put the 4th unit on if you can't physically fit it. So it's straightforward. I mean, if you don't comply with the zoning, you don't get it. This is going to clean up our zoning, get people to understand that we need to put in protective measures so that we have fire knows about them, everybody knows about them. So I'm in support of option 1 or 2. I think that's the best way to do it. So I want affordability. I want people to be able to have an opportunity to build housing for their families if they want to do it on their own property. So I'm in option 1 or 2. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scott?
So Councillor Ferragini's question put a few things into my head that I want to ask about. Just as a little preamble, clearly counting everyone who spoke, option 1 doesn't have support around the table. I indicated option 2 was probably what I was more comfortable with. When Councillor Dyke, you and I were chatting about this the other day, we called it the option of 4 where it makes sense. And so I see all of these options doing what Councillor Ferragini was asking about, which is modernizing our zoning bylaw so there's any restrictions as opposed to you have general rights under provincial law, go do whatever you want. So I guess what I'm trying to ask, Alan, can you help me understand, we've got kind of twisted around this idea of 4 ADUs because it's 3 in the home and 1 in the backyard. But as I think it was Councillor Verkuyk started us off with, we permit 4plexes up to 8plexes in most of our urban RX zoning already. So I'm still confused how these interact. If we don't allow ADUs up to 4, you could still build a purpose-built 4plex. I know, Ms. Crocker, you and I have talked about this offline before, that a purpose-built building is very different than for ADUs put together. So I'm still lost in what does option 3 prevent from happening in those R1 through R5 zones? And then I would still argue that option 2 restricts this up to 4 in the I think it's 5 to 7 zone. But I'm lost in between the difference between an ADU and a multi-unit building, because as we already discussed a half hour ago, we permit multi-unit buildings in most of our urban zoning already.
Mr. Weeb?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sandu. Through you to Councillor Scott. So certainly just to recap the zone categories, there's 7 residential zone categories that apply in the Bradford urban area and Bond Head settlement area. There's 7 different residential zone categories, 3 of which already permit multiple unit dwellings as of right. That is, of course, subject to minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage, and also parking requirements for the number of units that a proponent might want to deliver. And those are the same kinds of standards that have been replicated in the second column of the option 2 that's framework that's been presented to Council for consideration. I think you've touched on something that perhaps introduces a bit of a, or highlights a bit of a misnomer in the language around main versus accessory dwelling unit, and at what point does a 4-unit building become a 4-unit building versus a main dwelling plus 3 ADUs. And that's certainly part of what this framework and the consultation done so far proposes to modernize in a sense as well. Admittedly, the terminology of accessory dwelling unit in the context of the town zoning bylaw originates in 2010. And when permitting up to 1 ADU, it came with a certain maximum GFA percentage. Couldn't occupy more than, and I can't recall the number off the top of my head, let's say it was 45%, something less than 50. And the idea being the main unit is still bigger than the accessory dwelling unit. But certainly when multiple ADUs are permitted, as they are currently under Bill 23, it does perhaps blur those lines between whether a 3-unit building is a 3-unit building or a dwelling with 2 ADUs. And where Bill 23 no longer allows municipalities to establish floor area provisions for accessory units, it could be said that it further blurs those lines. If there's 3 ADUs or 3 units, under our zoning provisions, one might be considered the primary, and the other 2 accessory dwelling units, notwithstanding that they each might all have 1,000 square feet, be the same size. So it's a good point in terms of the terminology used. I think the main principles that we try to apply for the purpose of proposed zone standards would be what is the maximum number of units, and what are the appropriate standards to be applied for parking, and if the unit is detached, to the adjacent lot lines, and for height.
Follow up?
Yeah, just at the risk of confusing us all even more, help me understand, please, Mr. Weeb. If we passed option 2, just for example, what would we actually be changing in the I think it's 5 to 7 zone that are the less permissive, less dense, whatever we want to call it today? Because those 2 or 3 residential zoning already allow 3 units as of right. These, pardon me? You're not, no, okay. All right. I don't even know why I said pardon me, sorry. I'm trying to think of even how to phrase this. Okay, so R1 to R5, you can build 4 to 8 multi-unit residences in particular areas already. So if we passed option 2, we'd really only be amending 2 or 3 zoning areas in urban Bradford to allow for 1 more than they currently allow. So I guess the option 2, because of the restrictions that it puts in place, is A, limited to 2 or 3 areas in zoning areas in town, and 2 still comes with the setback, height, etc. restrictions. So, do I have that right? Is option 2 kind of even more limited than it might appear on paper?
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, send you to Councillor Scott. Yes, that would be a fair characterization, that it would indeed be more limited than it might appear. Option 2 as presented, just to break it down a little bit, would essentially relax provision slightly for 3 units across the board. No minimum lot frontage, no minimum lot area, and still maintaining the 1 additional parking space per ADU. Option 2 would separately also allow up to 4 units across the board. However, it would essentially rely on more restrictive standards, because Bill 23 prevents how restrictive municipalities can be for a 3-unit scenario. It does not prevent municipalities from being more restrictive for 4 units. And that's a balance that option 2 sought to strike. For instance, 3 units on a regular size lot, let's say 300 square meters. Bill 23 would not allow us to, if they can comply with parking, 3 units in a building, that would be okay under Bill 23. That supersedes our current zoning provisions. If someone wanted to do 4 units, option 2 would propose that we actually apply a minimum lot area per unit of 190 square meters. So instead of a 300 square meter property with 3 units, going to 4 units would require 760 square meters, 2.5 times the size. It would also require a greater minimum lot frontage. It would also require a much higher parking ratio. So cumulatively, those constraints for 4 units would dramatically reduce the number of lots that a proponent could actually achieve 4 units on as of right. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, after this, I have 5 speakers that put their hand up. Unless it's a new question or clarification question to what we discussed, we're already been at this for 39 minutes. I don't want to stop any questions or debate. That's not the intent. But if we're just going in circles and asking the same thing in a different way, I think we need to move on. No, you weren't. I'm not implying that. I'm just making a comment. If you guys want to go through 5 speakers, I'm okay with it. But if it's basically the same thing, unless it's a clarification question, I'm going to ask for the option to be put on the floor and we move on. Something different? Go ahead. You were the next on anyway.
So, couple questions. Number one, let's forget ADUs for a sec. Can I build a house to 1.2 meters setbacks to a rear yard and just build a mega house on a lot? No. But I can build a ADU that basically is the exact same footprint. So that's a question and comment I have. The other thing too is we're always yelling at developers for more parking spots in our downtown core, more parking spots. And then with option 2, you're actually 1.75 instead of 2 parking spots per unit. So I can't support that. We need to be very consistent on how we're approaching this area, because we can't pick and choose what battles we want to fight on how we feel about a specific area. We asked developers to do more, and now we're going to turn around and jam ADUs with less parking. It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm a little bit confused, because with option 3 versus the current zoning, you're saying there's just some other things in option 3 that are tightened up, correct? Can we make a modification? Can I make an amendment to an option 3 if option 1 doesn't pass, where we just change the rear setback to 3 meters? Because I don't think a building at 4 feet back from a rear lot line is very fair to people who buy homes and expect to live in a home, not in an apartment complex. So if option 1 doesn't pass, can I make a motion for option 3 with amendment to the rear setbacks? And is that an option to do, or is there like guidance around the ADUs?
Go ahead, but I believe council can make any amendment that they like. you're correct, but we're dealing with option first. I think it was put on the floor. And then if it doesn't carry, then yes, we can go ahead. And you were going to say something. I spoke first.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor Sandu. I completely agree, yes, that these were put on the floor as a starting point of options for Council's consideration, again, representing a gradient, not an exhaustive list. Standards would certainly be at Council's discretion to modify as you see fit as well. Yes, thank you.
The only caveat would be that we can't go against what's the legislation. As long as we're within that, we're okay to make any amendments. Okay, we have option one. Is mover and the seconder still okay with option one? I had Councillor Kaik, or do you want to put something else on the floor first?
Just go to, so I'm going to ask a question. I would like to do option 2, but I'd like to know what varies, the minimum max, what varies means in option 2. What
Mr. Weeb.
does, you got those 2 boxes that say varies. What is the minimum maximum of the varies for the setbacks?
It's for the rear side yard setback and the detached structure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Sandu, to Councillor Verkuyk. Yes, for the purpose of the body of the report, we provided a short form version of the more unpacked table. So when we indicate varies, if we were to flip to attachment 5.2 to the report, it varies based on whether it would be a 3-unit proposal or a 4-unit proposal. Again, in which case for a 4-unit proposal, larger minimum lot area, larger minimum lot frontage, greater parking standard, etc.
But it's always greater than what option 3 is.
With greater, you mean more restrictive?
More restrictive.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Verkuyk, are you?
I want to change the option 2.
Okay, do I have a second for that? Councillor Scott. Okay, we have the option 2. I'm not going to read the whole recommendation. All in favor of option 2? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? Okay. Option 2 is not carried. Do we have a, go ahead, Councillor Harper.
I'd like to recommend option 3 and leave as is. And if open to the amendment there, if my colleague from Ward 4 would like to address.
Okay, do I have a seconder for option 3? Okay, Councillor Giordano, any comments or questions? Go ahead.
So yeah, I'd like to amend that to allow a minimum of 3-meter setbacks for the rear setback.
I'm going to ask Mr. Weeb. Mr. Weeb, can you please answer that if we are allowed to do it?
Thank you, through Deputy Mayor Sandu. Just going to verify the Planning Act provisions now. I do not believe Bill 23 restricted what a municipality could require for a minimum or maximum rear yard setback. It did provide limitations on how many additional parking spaces could be required for ADUs, limits on gross floor area. Happy to verify rear yard setback immediately.
Okay, so the option 3, the further amendment is to have 3 meters setback from the rear side yard. Okay. And Mr. Weaver, are you looking at something else? Looking up for something else, or? Go ahead while we're waiting for Mr. Veeb. Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Just while we're waiting, at what point, or if he has an answer, I'll let him go ahead.
I think he has an answer. Go ahead, Mr. Veeb.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sandu. Bill 23 did not provide any direction, restriction on setbacks to interior side or rear lot lines. It did provide a setback of that a municipality can require no more than a 4-meter distance from the main building to a detached ADU. That is the one setback that Bill 23 did introduce. So requiring a 3-meter rear yard setback for a detached ADU would either comply with Bill 23 or not be out of compliance, depending on how you look at it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Verkuyk and then Councilor Scott.
What's the minimum setback for a house? Like,
Sure thing. Through Deputy Mayor Sandu to Councilor Verkuyk, a common minimum rear yard setback from the rear lot line to a dwelling is 7.5 meters. In some zones, it allows as little as 6 meters.
okay, so my follow-up to that is this 3 meters, or this only addresses the ADU, because the main house, which could have, a detached ADU, but a main house would still have to be 6.5 meters away. So if it's a house that they're turning into a main with 2 ADUs with no detached, they would still have to be 6.5 meters away. So this is only applying to a detached ADU.
That is correct. That's also my understanding. Okay, Councilor Scott. Okay, Councilor Daiki.
You know, what really puzzles me is that, you know, I look south of the 6th line and I see people taking out all their grass in front of their homes and paving it in concrete and putting parking right in front. No more grass, parking. And that's not the community that I want to see. All parking, no grass. And I find when some of these people do these, even basement apartments, I don't want to use the word cheat, but they find ways to squeeze on a property, but it doesn't look good with all these cars sitting in front of the houses. I don't want to see that kind of planning. What puzzles me is that the province is telling us to do 3, 4. I would sure love to see the infrastructure, the studies that shows us the impact on the water and sewers that we are discharging into our canal and the water that we're taking out. I have never seen a professional study to say that there's no impact to the pollution in the rivers or the drawing from the water and more water we need. I've never seen an overall study that ties into it. Yes, you know, I know you're doing a job of planning or trying to find housing, but when a developer comes in, when a developer comes in and he wants to do a subdivision, he has to do a study on
perhaps those points are for some other day. Right now we're dealing with ADUs. Let's stick to that. I'm sure we will get ample opportunities to discuss that, and you can ask a staff report at next council and deal with that. Okay, we have option 3 on the floor with amendment of 3 meters for the rear side yard setback. Okay, this is voting on that amendment. All in favor of that amendment? Okay, can I see the hands up, please? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's carried. Okay, now going back to the original amendment or recommendation as amended. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Okay. Okay. All right. Any final comments or questions? If not, all in favor of as amended? Okay. Can I see the? Okay. Thank you. It's carried. All right. Thank you. Very good discussion. Moving into next report, Foster's Forest Gateway feature. Recommendation, the report TR 2025-15 titled Foster's Forest Gateway Feature be received for information, and that council select options. There's multiple options that are listed in this report. And and that staff be directed to present any relevant costs to council for consideration during the 2026 budget deliberations. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Ferragini, Councillor Dehaney, comments or questions? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I want to thank the residents for coming out tonight to talk about the entrance at Foster's Forest and their concerns and the things that they brought up that they would like to see there. We had this conversation at a meeting with the residents there, and there has been some concerns because of the interlocking that is there. It is shifting, it is moving away, and it's also creating a lot of weeds, and then there's a lot of maintenance that has to be done with that. A couple years ago or so, there was a discussion to have the pavers removed and do the concrete. And from my understanding at first, I thought it was within the budget that we currently had. Apparently it wasn't, so now we have a report in front of us and we're looking at some costs. So based on the options that we have, obviously this can get to be a pretty pricey tag if you start touching absolutely everything, but there's a lot of it that I don't believe needs to be touched, and the residents have actually made that clear tonight when they were voicing their opinions on it. So to go through them all, I don't know how you want me to handle this, Deputy Mayor, if you want me to just throw the options on the floor for what I have, and then Council can have those discussions. I would like to point out that when this subdivision was built, there was an attraction to it because of the way that they made the entrance, and it brought this nice appeal to the subdivision, and that's why a lot of residents picked it. The town has realized, though, moving forward, that these type of entrances cost money to maintain, and there's a lot of work involved. So they're trying to get away from any kind of gateway entrances into specific subdivisions. Anybody who comes forward with that now, they dumb it right down to something that's very easy to maintain. They don't want anything that's too extravagant because of the costs that are associated to it. However, having said that, the options that were in this report, it was disappointing to see some of the options. Well, I mean, staff's going to give you every option, so it's not on staff, but you don't want to take something away that the residents have had for so many years. It's not fair to them. It was part of their subdivision, and it needs to stay. So I don't think we should, some of the options that were given would really give it a lackluster or just remove it completely, and I'm not a fan of any of those. So moving forward, I would like to see for the different options, lighting was mentioned, leave it as is. In the report, it states that they've already gone through the process of fixing the area, fixing the power, so the money's already been invested, so we leave the lighting as it is. We're not removing that. The pillars, they're all in good shape. There's a little bit of maintenance that needs to be done to them, very minor at this point. There were concerns that eventually they may need to be refurbished, but they've been standing for such a long time. At the end of the day, we can discuss that or have that conversation when something actually happens to these pillars, but they should be left as is as well. The roadway landscaping, option D, leave the roadway landscaping as is. I don't want to see that taken out. I don't want to see the extended grass curb and get rid of it completely. I don't want to see the actually that's the paving part after. I would leave the roadway landscaping as is. Now, when it comes to the medium paving stones, I would go with option E4, which is to be replaced with with stamped concrete. This was brought forward by the residents. In the report, it states that it would be a $33,000 capital cost, so that would have to come to budget. I'm not asking council to turn around and say yes right now to the money. We need to see that at budget time. However, what this would do is it would still give the same look. It would take away the interlocking stones, and it would also get rid of the maintenance issue because you wouldn't have the grass growing through all the interlocking stones and all the weeds coming out. So that's where I feel the residents were looking at. That's what I would like to see for the subdivision. Again, it has to come down to the budget and us having that discussion at that time for these funds. But lighting leave as it is, pillars leave as it is, roadway landscaping leave as it is, and then the medium paving stones, we replace that with paved, stamped concrete so we can get rid of all the pavers and not have to worry about maintenance anymore.
Perfect, thank you. So just to add, it'd be option B1 for the lights, which is, as you said, to leave as is. C1 for the pillars, which is also leave the pillars as is. D1 for the roadway landscaping, and E4, which says remove and replace existing paving stones with concrete. The cost of this option is $33,500, which will be considered at the budget time. Okay, do I have a seconder for this option? Councilor Giordano. Okay, any other comments or questions? Councilor Scott?
So I'm happy to do whatever makes the most sense here. Maybe it's an obvious question, but why do we need to do the concrete paving and replace the cobblestone area rather than whack the weeds down every year and perhaps fix the cobblestone?
So, who from staff would like to take this on, or do you have the answer? Did you get the answer for this, Councilor Ferragini, beforehand? Go ahead, while Joe's coming up.
So there is the option actually to lift and relay. It's a $10,500 option, which is a third of the stamped concrete. However, staff will have to continually go out and maintain it all the time. It is a little bit more out of their way, and they have to send specific staff or specialized equipment up to get all done and spend time on that area. So by having the stamped concrete, it gives it the same look, but it reduces that maintenance part of it. Unless Joe has extra to that.
Anything further to add, Mr. Coleman?
Sure, through you, Chair. To Councillor Ferragini and Councillor Scott. The paving stones can be lifted in just certain areas. They don't all have to be lifted. There's some settlement around the pillars, and that's natural. It's actually happening in the medians out here as well. When you build something, you put in foundations, sometimes it doesn't compact completely around the pylons that you put in, and it settles. There's other areas where there's been utility work that the stones have to be replaced. It's minimal. To maintain the weeds, regular cleaning could happen as well. Take some of that, the natural medium out of there and put some paving stone sand in that usually you put in between paving stones, because it's had a buildup over the years of dust blowing in out of the farm fields, that kind of thing. So it gives the base for weeds to grow. So it could be maintained more readily. It's just like, as Peter Ferragini said, it's out of the way. Sometimes it gets hidden, and it doesn't get to maintained as well as it should have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dakey?
Well, I respect what the residents came forward and requesting. You know, that is a very prestigious pocket in our municipality. They're big homes. They pay, the taxes are quite high, and I feel that, at budget time we need to have a look at this, a serious look at this, and try and accommodate it and evaluate it. At the end of the day, if we can do stamped concrete, affordable, and hopefully we can get some good contractors at good prices after budget, then I'm open-minded to it. So, we're going to look at this at budget and take it back. But it's a nice subdivision, and we're going to maintain our, we accepted this when they assumed the subdivision, so I feel that we got to maintain it for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Giordano.
So yeah, I was waiting to hear what the ward councillor would say, because generally I like to defer to the ward councillor's opinions on the area. I want to point out, so in Richmond Hill, if you look at Elgin Mills and Yonge Street area, there's a mass premium subdivision that has interlock mediums all across. They have these beautiful gatehouses, and they even have interlock sidewalks. That the people who live there pay a premium on their taxes, believe it or not, so they can maintain that. And they put it in a what's it called? It goes into the actual town's budget, and they maintain it every 10 years. They pull out all the interlock and they relay. Interlock costs 3 times more money to take out, clean, and relay. A lot of times it's cheaper just to throw it and redo it. So I like the idea of the concrete aspect because it's a little bit less maintenance based. My only concern is if there's electrical there, with interlock you can pull it out, do the work, put it back in. If there's concrete, you gotta chip, break, and then repair. So is there any issues, or can you put like saw lines just so it's only a certain area that you're cutting, so it's a cleaner kind of maintenance if you need to get to the electrical? That's my only concern with that little strip. There's one column with the light post, right? So that was my only thing that I identified on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Oh, sorry.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Giordano. Of course, you can do that. It just raises the price. If you put conduits in, the infrastructure that was fixed, they should have conduited. Instead of direct bury, everything was direct bury before. So conduits, yes, conduits you can feed the electrical through the conduits. Hopefully it doesn't get cut when you're actually doing the construction and then you have to rip it out again, but that's a warranty issue.
Thank you. As a construction expert, I thought you had the answer. This is good that the public hears it too. Good. Thank you, Mayor Leduc.
Yeah, I was looking over and I asked a question about the residents if they'd maintain the greenery, and we can see here that if we went with concrete, it saves $1,000, and if the residents maintain the greenery in the area, that saves us $1,400. That's $2,400 a year in savings. It would only take us 14 years to pay back the $33,000. So I'd be more apt to put that in the budget. I'd throw that in the budget in a heartbeat, do the stamp concrete, if you guys helped us maintain the greenery. So we have to go out and do that, right? So if we didn't have to do that, that would save us $2,400 a year in maintenance costs. So if that was something the residents were open to, and I think, Councilor Virginia, if you can have a conversation with them in the future about that to see if they would maintain that for us and save us that trip out there to do that, then we have a savings here that we can certainly share, and we can do the concrete paving, and I think that would be the best. The concrete, that would be the stamped best one to work with, because I think you get 30 years out of that, no problem. So that's what I would hope that we could come to, and because it's going to come back to budget, and if we can find a way to work together on that, I'd appreciate that. So thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Do you want me to repeat the options, or we're very clear on it? Okay, it's on the lights, B1, pillars, C1, roadways, D1, median, E4, with staff to come back at the budget time for the cost, $33,500. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, I have a mover and a seconder already for that. Okay, main motion as amended. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Moving along to 15.3.3, recommendation report for draft plan of vacant condominium. Recommendation that report PLN 2025-28 be received, and that the proposed draft plan of vacant condominium D12-2101 dated October 30th, 2024 for the lands legally described as south part of Lot 23, Concession 1, Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, County of Simcoe be given draft plan approval subject to the modifications outlined in report PLN 2025-28 and illustrated in attachment 5.4B, and subject to conditions attached hereto as attachment 5.5, including that draft approval lapse after 3 years in the event that a condominium development agreement is not executed within that period. Moved by Councillor Verkuyk, Councillor Scott. Very good, very timely report. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, Committee of the Whole adjournment. Recommendation that the Committee of the Whole adjourn at 9:15 p.m. Moved by Councillor Dehaney, Councillor Harper. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Back to you, Your Worship, and I would have to take the leave. I have a family matter to attend to, so I'll be leaving now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and duly noted that you had to leave due to a family engagement or issue that you have to deal with. Okay, recommendation. So we'll reconvene the meeting at, what time is it? 9:16. And we're on to section 17, Committee minutes and recommendations. Recommendation that the committee minutes and recommendations, items 17.1 to 17.2 inclusive, be received and approved. Mover to second, put this on the floor, please. By Councillor Dyke, second by Councillor Scott. Any of the recommendations to be pulled? Councillor Harper?
Yeah, maybe just pull all 17.2.
17.2, okay. Okay,
Just to make it less confusing.
okay. Any other recommendations that want pulled? None, so we'll actually say that the committee minutes and recommendations, item 17.1.23 inclusive, be received and approved. And I have a mover and seconder, so all in favor? Carried, thank you. We will move on to 17.2. Recommendation 1 then. It's the minutes. We can go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really just wanted to focus in on the 17.2.2, the recommendation. Council received the midterm report and endorsed recommended action. There's a lot of wording in here, plus a motion as well in 17.3 or 17.2.3. If I could, before discussing it, have the chair just elaborate on some of these things. I know we've talked a bit about some of the recommendations in here and the concerns highlighting that, but the language is still probably a little bit elusive and not as clear as I'd like it to be, especially pertaining to creating a private tree bylaw and the worries behind that some residents would have that it might be restricting or, invasiveness to their own personal property. So I'd like for the chair to just give us an overview of this and that they ask here, and then we can move forward with that. Is that okay? Yeah? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, you want to?
So as I understood that, the question was on the committee's work plan, which council would have endorsed 2 or 3 years ago, and the outstanding items, one of which includes a private tree bylaw. We passed a public tree bylaw. The intention is to create to go consult in order to put forward a proposed private tree bylaw that would largely deal with clear cutting by developers, especially prior to getting full development rights. Our intention is not to impact individual residents. That would be impossible to manage. There are best practices from other municipalities that we could look to, but that is the intention of the update to the committee's work plan. We've achieved a lot of what we set out to do in the original work plan, and those 2 or 3 outstanding items are as listed in the recommendation.
Thank you. Further questions? Go ahead.
So with those comments regarding the private tree bylaw, I'm satisfied that something would come forward. Obviously, it'll be up to, is it the committee that would have the action then bring it forward to council? Is that what you're saying? The other part of that is the increase for the boreal or foresting or planting of trees. While this really talks about, a modest budget increase and something that we struggle with probably going back and forth every year, we already, in my opinion, we already increased that budget at the beginning of this term and have continued to increase that. To ask for more on that in regards to it, I think there's other ways that we could go about that. It just asks for a lot more inventory of trees and maintenance needs, but the breakdown on how the previous funds were used or measurable outcomes from like prior investments, I just don't really think we should be throwing money at trees without the data or the public funds. And I guess obviously this comes at a budget time issue. So maybe you can help sell me on it.
Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Scott first.
Sure. Well, through your worship to Councillor Harper, I think you sort of hinted at the answer in your question. For the past couple of budgets, town staff have wanted to increase funding for the tree maintenance program, and the tree replacement program, which is different than the tree planting program. The committee has wanted staff to report on the difference between those three streams because, quite frankly, council confuses them. And we added $25,000 more in the first year of our mandate, I believe, to the tree planting budget, but we've added nothing to the tree maintenance budget or the tree replacement budget. So the committee's work plan calls for staff to report on the arboriculture program as a whole and the three different streams of it and recommend how those three different streams could be increased and what that would achieve. So the answer to your question would be in that reporting from staff back to council and the committee.
Okay, Councillor Kike.
Yeah, so of course we're going to be, if there's any increase in, if there's any budget impact, it will be dealt with during budget time. All we're doing is recommending an increase to tree planting because trees is probably one of the best investments we can make for our grandchildren. And if you're not going to plant 40-foot high trees. You got to plant trees so that in 40 years you have 40-foot high trees. And if we don't do that now, the best time to plant a tree is now, not 40 years from now. Oh yeah, yesterday. So, but you get what I mean.
Okay, yeah. I'll speak this too then. I just want to speak this a little bit. I can receive this for information. I can't endorse the recommendations. The recommendations clearly state that they want it in the budget now. We're talking about potentially a 1% increase if you did this. You're looking at tripling the litter buckets, the litter traps. That's a $90,000 increase. $130,000 was in for the trees last year. That's almost a 1% increase to the community. So I think the report is great. I think they have done a great job, but we won't screw up the mayor's budget again. We won't make that mistake like it states in this report. So I want to make sure that you want this in the budget. Let's bring it to the parking lot, and we'll definitely clearly have it in the budget at the parking lot time. So this is saying you want it in the budget now. So I just can't. I think this is a great report to receive for information. I'm good with that. So well, hang on. You spoke a couple times. Go to Ferragini. Councilor Ferragini. I didn't put a question. I didn't put a question.
I was just looking, the way that it was written was triple the initial investment in the town's successful Little Trap pilot project through the 2026 budget process. So I looked at that as it coming to budget in 2026, and we actually have a conversation at that time, not our current budget. So I don't know, like our 2025 is our current budget. So I'm not sure where the miscommunication there is or where you got that from.
Yeah, it's just that if the mayor's going to build the budget, I'm going to put the stuff in the budget. So bring it as a parking lot item, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to talk about it at the parking lot, but this is, if I look at this, there was 103,000 trees last year, so I'm assuming that's what you're looking at to put back in the budget. And the litter traps is, we spent 30,000 on it, so it'd be 90,000. So I'm looking at it as almost a point percentage. So, Councilor Scott.
So there were a variety of assumptions and misapprehensions in those comments that hopefully I can disabuse you of, Your Worship. The request is on the tree maintenance, replacement, and planting budget is for staff to report on how they could increase the program. It actually doesn't directly speak to the budget. You're correct that last year in the mayor's draft budget, I believe you included $135,000 to do that. I believe you then voted or moved to remove that from the budget. That was confusing. It was in the mayor's draft budget. It wasn't in the final budget through a motion the mayor proposed. So the committee still wants to see those increases. They've asked staff to report. So that's a request for a report. There's no direct tax increase in staff reporting on what they could or could not do. And Councillor Ferragini, I think, already hopefully disabused you of the confusion around referring an item to the budget process. Yes, it is now the mayor's budget, so you would be the one drafting it. Council still gives direction and ultimate endorsement of a budget. That's the new process. You propose a budget, we amend the budget. So I guess I'll just end it there. Councillor Ferragini got it exactly right. The one item is to request a report. Hopefully we're all interested in receiving information and better understanding things before making ultimate decisions. And the other is to refer a consideration for something that, quite frankly, we all attended the photo op and celebrated doing more of through the budget process. So hopefully, as I say, that has clarified any confusion on your part about the process and what we're intending to do.
Thank you. Not too confused. Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the chair and the colleagues for the representing and the clarifying on these points. I'm satisfied for them to move forward as possible as is, Mayor. I know I pulled it, but I'm happy to just vote on it, and I know it'll come to budget, and then we can decide there in parking lots or however it comes to us. So,
It's on any others. So I have recommendation that 17. Recommendation that 17.2 inclusive of 1, 2, 3 be approved. Received and be approved. And we have a mover to second, correct? I have a mover to second for that? No, I don't. Okay, move by Councillor Kike, seconded by Councillor Scott. Any questions or comments further? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. We're on to bylaws, or new business. No new business, bylaws. So I have bylaws 2025, 56, 57, 58, 59, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72 be passed, and bylaw 2025-60. Do I pull it and do it separately, or should I? Okay, so I'll leave that out. So these bylaws excluding 2025-60. That's the one we just did the amendment tonight, Councillor Harper, your amendment to the 54 and 64. Okay, so we'll do that separately because that's amended. Okay, anybody need? It was Jeff that caught it. So it was Tara that caught it. Sorry, the clerk told us. So anybody want to remove any of these or pull any of these for discussion, or? Yeah. Okay, so mover to seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Ferragini, seconded by Councillor Dehaney. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll go back to bylaw 2025-60 as amended. Moved by Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Giordano. Questions, concerns? That's 54-60, yeah, the Holland Street. Yeah. Okay, we're good. That's as amended, so that's got the new. Okay, no questions. All in favor? Carried. So do we have to go back and? No. Okay. Perfect. Got through that. We are on to notice motions. So we have advocacy for increased income support thresholds for Canadian veterans. Okay. Hey, you want to read it? Okay. So recommendation, whereas the town of Bradford recognizes the selfless service and enduring sacrifices made during Canadian Armed Forces veterans in defense of our country and values. Whereas in 2021 census conducted by Statistics Canada identified more than 460,000 veterans residing across Canada, a significant population segment deserving of comprehensive, accessible, and modernized federal support. Whereas Veterans Affairs Canada currently administers income support programs to assist veterans in need, including the Income Replacement Benefit Program. Whereas the eligibility threshold for Income Replacement Benefit, IRB, program, which was created in 2019, set at $20,000 annually for a single-person household, fails to reflect today's economic reality, particularly in light of inflation, soaring housing costs, and the general increase in cost of living. Whereas such low eligibility thresholds may disincentivize employment and community participation by penalizing veterans for earning beyond an outdated benchmark, thereby discouraging reintegration and contribution to civic life. Whereas it is the duty of all levels of government to stand in a unified support of our veterans and to advocate for policy changes that enable them to live with dignity and financial stability. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Bradford formally calls on the Government of Canada and all federal parties to increase the eligibility threshold for the income Replacement Benefit Program from $20,000 to not less than $40,000 annually for a single-person household, and that Council urges Veterans Affairs Canada to review all income support programs with the intent to modernize eligibility criteria in line with the current cost of living across Canada. Now this motion be formally endorsed and sent to the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Jill McKnight, Minister of Veteran Affairs, the Honourable Andrew Scheer, Acting Leader of the Official Opposition, Scott Davidson, Member of Parliament for New Tecumseh and Gwillimbury, and all 444 municipalities across the province of Ontario. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, for broader distribution and endorsement. And the copy of this resolution be published on the town's official website and communicated through the town's official channels to raise awareness and gather public support. Oh, that's why you want me to read it. Okay. Is so you're moving it and your seconder? Councillor Scott? Okay. Questions or concerns with that? It's a well-written. Yeah, please comment.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for reading that out. I'm bringing this forward today, not just as a councillor, but as someone who has served. And, you know, when I bring forward a motion that asks council to stand shoulder to shoulder with veterans across Canada, I'm talking about 460,000 or more veterans in our country today. Not all of them are struggling, but there are a large number of them that are struggling under outdated federal policies that penalizes them for trying to earn an honest living, or at least to try to get above the poverty line. What does that mean? I'm talking about advocating for raising the IRB, which is the income replacement benefit. It's a threshold for veterans that was established through the Pension for Life in 2019. It's a vital issue that affects thousands, right? And I appreciate your support, Councillor Scott, in seconding this motion, and those that raise their hands too. Thank you. But when I highlight the IRB threshold and state that it hasn't been updated since 2019, there are currently other benefits that we have in this country, like the child care benefit, CCB, the old age security, the GIS, which is guaranteed income support, Canada's worker benefits. These are either updated annually or periodically to meet the thresholds that economic times are facing through all of our people here and our residents in Canada. We're talking about even provincial social assistance programs like welfare checks or minimum wage, disability pension checks. Many provinces periodically review and increase income eligibility thresholds to basically reflect the economic conditions and inflation. So by contrasting the static nature of the IRB threshold and other benefit programs that support veterans, you can underscore how the veterans benefit has lagged behind. We all know what has happened since 2019 through COVID and leading up to how we live today. The soaring costs of, rising housing costs, inflation, the general costs for food and general natures of how we live today have put economic pressures on us today. That's not even including the tariffs. But comparatively, several other institutions or benefit programs, support programs, have adjusted their thresholds, reflecting the rising cost of living, except for veterans. Why this is important is that we, as a government, all have a duty to help and a moral obligation to ensure that veterans who have served the nation are not left struggling financially. This really resonates with a broad base of constituents and appeals to a sense of justice and gratitude. So I want to emphasize that taking this action today to support those who have served this country will help actually send a message that all governments need to step up, and it is our obligation here at a municipal level, not just here, but at all levels, and that the federal governments put aside their differences and honor and upgrade these benefits for veterans. Thank you.
Okay, well said. Thank you. Further comments? Okay, I've got Councillor Verdini, then Councillor Giordano next.
Thank you. Thank you to Councillor Harper for bringing this forward, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here. And you have to completely excuse my ignorance towards all of this. There is a lot to unpack here. There's tons of information. The programs that you're talking about in this motion, I'm not familiar with. It's just there's so much behind all this that I don't have any information about how the programs work, how anything happens, and basically it'd be a motion of me just saying, yeah, give our veterans more money. So to me, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of information here that I don't know any of the background towards it. And I know you say it's our obligation, but as a municipality putting forward a motion like this, I mean, where do we stand in this as to how these programs work? And I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words because I don't know exactly. I'm not saying don't give our veterans more money. There's just so much to this motion that I don't have any information on, and I don't know any of the background information on this motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Giordano.
Yeah, when I first got this, I looked at it. I read it again, read it a third time, and I had to start reaching out to people to find out what is this. Because to your point, it's a massive issue that has a lot of touch points that need to be looked at. The one thing I can say is after getting a lot of the information sent back to me or articulated to me, I was kind of angry, to be honest with you, because there's so many people in this country that take advantage or utilize government funding to allow them to survive, live, or they take advantage. But for our veterans, the ones who lay their lives on the line for our country, there are peacekeepers. And then for them to be capped at how much money they can earn before they start getting penalized for that, at the end of the day, if anyone deserves a little extra love and a little extra, a threshold of support, it would be our veterans. And from my understanding, and maybe Councillor Harper, you can address this for me. Basically, at the end of the day, the more they got a base amount of money coming from the government, and as soon as they start trying to work outside of that, in addition, and they legally claim their taxes on it, they start getting penalized from that money from the government. When you look at the U.S. government, their veterans have fantastic support systems, amazing employment. In fact, companies go out, and it's still nowhere near as good as what it should be. But the point is that we're far lacking that, and anything I can do to help, give our veterans a little extra, that's my understanding. Maybe you can clarify. I don't want our veterans penalizing for them trying to to additionally work into society outside of their military kind of background. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, through Mayor to Councillor Giordano, good points. This is really talking about systemic change and standing with veterans. It really talks about the budgetary constraints that, several veterans are below the poverty line. And there's actually no, incentivization for them to actually come back into society, but so that veterans have a lot to offer to us. When it talks about climatizing back into civilian life, that is one of the hugest and largest issues with veterans standing today. And when you disenfranchise a certain amount of groups, our heroes, our brave people who stood on the line, no matter what job they did, they still volunteered and sacrificed a lot to put a nation before themselves. So this really talks about fairness to other groups, as to your point, and really, it's really just highlighting effectiveness and oversight that's been missed. I would hate to think that this would be, one that could portray back to the federal government, did we forget about our veterans? I hope that's just an oversight and not a forgetful thing. And that's kind of why it just basically highlights this oversight to just bring it forward gently and be like, hey, this is still going on. Our veterans care. We do care about our veterans. It's highlighted across our country. I just want to reinforce that. And when I reinforce that moral imperative, I understand my colleagues' understanding about not knowing about that, right? And to be honest, it's okay. You don't live it, right? I mean, veterans do every day. I was just at a retirement party for retired warrant officer, gave 20 years. He spent 5 tours in Afghanistan. Made it back, and he's still got a smile on his face, but there's going to be needs that he's going to have to go through for this service. And it's the amount of physicality even onto just his body. I'm not talking about his mind. or his inner self. I'm just talking about his body that has asked him that. And a lot of those benefits really talk about supporting that. You know, when you get, when you're put through the ringer for 20 years asking for physicality of a humping kit and jumping out of planes and slinging 30-pound guns and, you know, it really tests your body. And the older you get, I don't know if you can feel it today, maybe if you do a hard day's work, you wake up sore the next day. Well, add 20 years and about 2 million kilometers to that, and you're going to feel it. And that's what's asked of some of these soldiers day in, day out, and they give it unwillingly. So to have these benefits here, I just put the threshold of 40,000 here, but that threshold, in my opinion, should not even exist. But I just want to bring that oversight to the federal government so that we stop bickering back and forth and we just start to do what's right.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to say two things. First, thank you to Councillor Harper. You've brought forward a handful of really good motions about honoring our veterans with the crosswalks and now this tangible way to help veterans' economic situation. Second thing I want to say is the federal government has a variety of income replacement or income supplement programs, the Canada Child Benefit, Canada Pension Plan, OAS, etc. And I think it only makes sense that our veterans not get disincentivized from working with too low of a threshold whereby this benefit would be clawed back. And I think we need to look no further than the fact that we just had a federal election. Some MPs didn't run again. Some MPs lost their seats. MPs earn pensions. They don't get those pensions mean tested. They go out and get jobs after losing their seats, and they get their full pension too. So why would we penalize our veterans rather than treating them the way we treat former members of parliament?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again, yeah, and I, you know, listening to your reading of this motion and everything else, and reflecting back with Lieutenant Colonel Terry Wong, talking about some of the issues, you know, when we did the RCF 100th anniversary, and talking about some of the issues that his people are going through, and the veterans and everything else, and how they're looking, you know, at difficult affordable housing issues, the whole bit. And so I get it when the threshold is too low in my mind, and I think it's something that I can certainly sit behind and support, because I got to learn from Lieutenant Terry Wong, so from, I think it's Wing 441. I'm not sure. I hate to mess it up, but it was interesting to sit with him for a few hours and talk about some of the struggles they go through. So absolutely in support of this, and let's have the vote. If we're all ready, we'll have the vote. So we have our mover and seconder. Yeah. Okay. So all in favor of the recommendation? Excellent. Thank you. We are on to the next motion we have, and it's by Councillor Giordano. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to read it? What would you like? All right. Okay, let's take a drink of water. Here we go. I got caught the last time. Recommendation, whereas the town of Bradford values collaboration, partnership, and enhancing community spaces and amenities, and whereas the library board and library staff have identified a potential project to improve the exterior library canopy area to better serve the community and provide programming opportunities. And whereas the inclusion of patio seating and tables with integrated chess checkerboards would benefit seniors, students, and the general public. Now therefore be it resolved that the town staff be directed to work collaboratively with the library board and library staff to develop a proposal for modifying the exterior library canopy area to include patio seating, tables with integrated chess checkerboards, and other programming enhancements as identified. 2, that this proposal will be presented to the Friends of the Library as a funding partnership opportunity to support the identified project. 3, the proposal will include recognition opportunities for the Friends of the Library charity group through appropriate plaques and acknowledgements. And 4, that staff report back to council on the outcome of this funding partnership discussion and any subsequent next steps. So moved by you, seconded by Councilor Ferragini. Turn it over to you.
Well, let me start by saying that this was crafted originally before the whole Boilergate scenario took place. Since then, we now have an MOU that needs to be developed. So that's going to be a challenge. And I'm going to respectfully retract this motion at this time for 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is I have fantastic support from the Friends of the Library. They do amazing fundraising. They've got they just broke records this weekend at their latest book sale. And they're looking for a partnership with both the library board and potentially the town as well. So I'm actually blessed to be on all 3. I'm a council member, I'm on the library board, and I'm also the liaison with the Friends of the Library. So I'm trying to collaborate everybody together. And in a few weeks, it's the first time ever that the Friends of the Library and the library board will be getting together. That's never happened before. So an official kind of meeting. So that's taken place. This was something that there was interest from a lot of the parties, including the library board. We passed something in our last meeting that gave some direction for the library board. This was the idea, or one of the ideas. I'm going to retract it because number 1 of the MOU and the status that's on right now. Number 2, we've got a lot of moving pieces right now in this town, and I think it's best that we don't start committing dollars at this point. We need to be mindful of a new library location that needs to get built very soon. Number 2 is I think there's still an opportunity, maybe not as a grand scale, to do some of these things that we're talking about within the library corridors. And so that's something I'll be bringing back to them. And lastly, I would have to say that the affordability right now, it's a struggle. And what we need to do is we need to start saving our money and not spending. So if I can retract this, then that we don't have to use our staff resources to go there and start researching on something. We don't have to spend that money right now with both the library board and the Friends of the Library. We can start looking at a little bit more strategic savings for maybe more issues that may come up in the future, but also I want to start planning for that second library, whether it's a satellite branch or whatnot. So I'm going to retract it at this time. So I apologize. A lot of things have happened since this was originally drafted a couple weeks ago, but I think that's the right thing to do at this time.
I would have gave you the floor before I read it. I would have gave you the floor and said, yes, Giordano. Hey? No, I probably would have gave you the floor before. Yeah. You could have asked me, say, your mayor, I'd like to talk about this first. So I would have said, no problem, no, retracted. Thank you very much. Excellent rationale. Okay, we're on to general announcements. Okay, proclamation of flag raisings. We had the Italian Heritage Month and Fiesta della Republic on June 2nd. I think that was a well-attended flag raising, and thank you for everybody for stepping in. Councilor Ferragini for doing that for me. I was at FCM for that, so thank you very much. That was Sunday at 11. Seniors Month is June 20 this year, June. Flag raising will be Thursday, June 5th at 10 a.m. at the BWG Leisure Center right here. The Portuguese Heritage Month and Portugal Day is June 8th. Flag raising down at the courthouse at 2 p.m. on June 8th. Pride Month, June. Flag raising is Thursday, June 12th at 11 a.m. at the Leisure Center right here. The National Indigenous Peoples Day is June 21st. Flag raising Saturday, June 21st, 9 a.m. at the BWG Leisure Center. And Garden Week is June 23rd to 29. Flag raising is Monday, June 23rd at 1 p.m. at the courthouse courtyard. So lots of flag raising in June, lots of fun in June for raising flags. So up and coming events, we have the BWG Trails Day. It's the Mayor's Hike for Health. So we have that Saturday, June 7th, 11 p.m. to 1 p.m. It's at Scannon Creek Conservation Area. We have all sorts of fun things happening there with hot dogs and hiking and learning about Scannon Creek. So come on out and enjoy a day out there for a couple hours with us at Scannon Creek at 2459th Line. We also have the crosswalk unveiling ceremony coming up on Friday, June 6th, 3 p.m. Yeah, it doesn't say, it's 3 p.m. Right here, right out front here on Brian Collier Way. So come and enjoy us at 3 p.m. and then we can go back after that. There's a social also at the Legion if everybody wants to attend that. So more announcements. We have up and coming events. We have a public meeting, the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment on June 10th. At 7 p.m. right here in the Zima room. So please come out and attend that. That's a big public meeting for our official plan. Music in the Park starts up. So we know it's summer when we got a lineup for Music in the Park. That's June 24th July 8th, July 15th, July 22nd, and July 29th. Lots of great bands there. And then the public the public square opening is June 24th with Exodus and Bob Marley. So tribute to Bob Marley. So we got that June 24th. Come out and enjoy public square. We're going to have it opened on June 24th. Looking forward to that. Splash pads open up. They're now open for the summer, so great timing because it was quite hot today. I think we had a little cool weekend, but nice and hot for the last couple of days. So, and then we have lawn water restrictions. They start June 1st to September 30th. So basically, you can water your lawns, and other landscaping is only permitted between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. and only at the even-numbered addresses on even-numbered days. Odd-numbered addresses on odd-numbered days. So please check out our website for that lawn restriction from June 1st to September 30th. Even numbers, even days, odd numbers, odd days. Council meetings coming up. We have the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Advisory Committee coming up June 4th, 7 p.m. at the Jamal Pascal room right here in the library. Come and join us for that. And then we have our regular council meeting June 17th right here at the Zima room. Please join us for that meeting also. And then council breaks after that for July. Thank you to our school guard crossings. It's the appreciation week, June 2nd to 6th. So say hi to your crossing guards, go out and see them, and thank them for taking care of our children every day, getting them across the street safely. So thank you to the group for doing what they do every year. Thank you very much. Any more? Okay, we're done with that. Okay, county council update. As you know, the last county council meeting, we had the weighted vote. It was on the table. What happened is that we have, you can call for a recorded vote, but that doesn't absolutely get the weighted vote involved unless you actually identify recorded plus weighted. So you have to do the recorded plus weighted for that. The only real change in it is that when it comes to council composition, it's only one single vote. When it came to council composition, it was a weighted vote before. They changed that to single vote per member. So that's coming to us. County council downsizing is coming to us, and we'll do a further report on the structure of the weighted vote and the whole bit in that report. So that's coming to us, I think, next, 17th. It'll be on the 17th agenda. So we'll deal with it then and talk about that. But that was the real main issue with that. The Hospital Alliance came and did a presentation about all the hospitals in Simcoe County. That was a good report also. There's 7 hospitals in Simcoe County, and they all have major projects coming up. So we dealt with that there. And that's it for County Council for now. We'll move to confirming proceedings. That the bylaw 2025-73, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of the regular council and committee whole meeting dated June 3rd, 2025 be enacted. Moved by Councillor Ferragini, second by Councillor Dehaney. Okay.
So I wanted to ask a question, I guess to yourself, Your Worship. I think for the first time, we had a provincial priority that received 4 out of 5 votes. So I just, when it comes to confirmed proceedings, I suppose, to be blunt about it, what option for the ADU resolution passed?
Option 3 was supported.
Option 2 had 4 votes in favor.
Yep.
On a provincial priority. So the decision's ultimately yours, and I wanted to ask how you would be intending to do that.
Oh, okay. I hear you. Yeah, that's okay. I will review that because that is on the table. Okay, so yeah. So confirm proceedings. I had the mover and seconder. We'll confirm proceedings. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then adjournment. We will adjourn at 9:55. The meeting hereby adjourned at 9:55. Councillor Verkuyk, seconded by Councillor Scott. All in favor? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.